Seeing that it's 7:02, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. We want to make sure that everybody realizes that Chelmsford Telemedia is recording tonight's meeting. If anybody else is recording, if you'll let me know. Seeing none. So we'll start with the first item on our agenda, as it always is public input. Is there anything that anybody wants to share now? There will be lots of opportunities to share later too.
Do we know, will Steve Yali be here tonight?
I don't know. I emailed him this week, and he said that his response was basically that he couldn't be expected to be at every meeting.
Of course.
And that was kind of what was left.
All right, then I'd like to share something with the committee. It's more for the town, but I'll share it with you.
Please, could you come up here?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. Thank you. And identify yourself too, please.
David Nelson, 282 Old Westford Road. Oh, hi.
Hi.
So, thank you for everything so far. So here, I'll just show you, here's the original Howard Stein project plan. And in the playground, you can see the very, very light gray area, the interior, which is the current outline of the playground.
Correct.
And when Howard Stein originally developed this, they had said, hey, this was more conceptual. And then once they handed it over to the town, it would be updated to reflect the actual property lines.
Right.
I took a look at the RFP package, which had been sent out that you had provided on the website, and it's basically the same.
Right.
It's just a blown-up version.
Exactly. So I took a look at that. Unfortunately, I didn't have access to any of the other files that he had put into the RFP, so I only had access of that. But I just wanted to highlight to you what the actual property lines look like today. If you look here, the dark blue is my home. It's just because that's what I selected when I opened up the actual map property lines.
Right.
If you can see, my neighbor's home actually abuts the corner of the fence right now.
Okay.
If you take a look at your original Howard Stein, it's showing 30 feet of the buffer,
Right.
and plus an additional area.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that when Steve does go out to the site and does site clearing work, is that that is considered to be the neighbor's property, as well as the walkway. If you can see, the walkway is clearly within two abutters. The town store plus the parking lot is where the current pathway goes through. So I think that should be taken into consideration in Steve's RFP, plus also the site work that the committee is going to do.
Right. Is this from the GIS
It is.
mapping system?
Correct.
Okay. So you may not have been here at the, this was a while ago, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I do remember Steve saying that this, and I'm going to speak not for him, but try to recant what he
Right.
said, that the GIS mapping was not totally accurate.
Okay.
And if you remember, we were talking about the need for having property surveys done
Correct.
back in the beginning, and,
Right.
and then it was stated, or he said that they would do those when the time came.
And so that's why I'm bringing it to the attention
Right.
now, because I see it perpetuating its way through the RFP process.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to address Steve, just to see when that was going to happen, so
Right.
we'll have a good idea of what to expect and when to expect it.
Clearing.
Exactly.
I would appreciate that you'd want that sorted before.
Exactly.
And we
Yeah.
had a conversation. We've had conversations with him about the engineering surveys being done,
Mm-hmm.
and those were part of the timeline. And they'll be part of the timeline that we'll discuss tonight. But I believe that it was set for November, and he didn't give me an update on when those surveys were going to be done.
Okay.
So I share that with you just to say that I think that it's being discussed, but I don't think it's been done yet. So
Correct.
I think since he's not here, there's going to be things that we're going to discuss in regards to tree protection guidelines and
Mhm.
things. So I was thinking that, and we need to talk about this later, but maybe there's a possibility of us putting together some sort of a letter saying this is sort of what we believe that the tree protection guidelines should be, and maybe we should include that the engineering surveys should be addressed as soon as possible, or
Exactly.
at least, I think there's there's some sort of a follow-up meeting for the people that have pulled RFPs that's going to happen on December 14th.
Yeah, I saw that. Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to give them additional information there. My
Right.
assumption is that the engineering surveys will be done in time for that, but that's just my assumption.
Yeah,
Is that open to the public, that meeting?
I'm assuming that it is, but we'd have to clarify that with him. So maybe if we put together some sort of a
Formal Roberts Field
letter
Advisory
just to say
Committee
that,
letter
yeah,
to
Yeah.
the town.
we should expect that the boundary survey should be done before that, that meeting and provided to the people who've pulled RFPs.
Yeah.
Would that be
absolutely.
satisfactory?
Absolutely. It's to me, it's to try to address it before it's too late.
Right, yeah, yes,
Okay,
great.
that's that. I have another copy if you want it for him. It's up to you, or is that fine?
I think
Okay.
this will be fine. And I wanted to say too, because I know this was always throwing me off too, because the town's opinion was that the property line for these two, well, for the town property ran down the middle of the creek,
Mm-hmm.
which
Clearly, it's not the
it's
case.
not the case in the
Right.
GIS system.
Right.
And so that's been troubling from the start.
Exactly, and that's more for the town than for this committee, right?
But it needs to be addressed, and I
It does,
thank
yeah.
you for bringing it to our
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah,
I
no
mean,
problem.
Definitely the more formal voice to address the town about
Yeah,
as part of this.
good.
So we'll add that, we'll add the surveys to the I don't know if it'll be a recommendation or
Yeah,
it'll be some sort of a follow-up letter to the town.
okay, perfect.
Great.
I appreciate it. Thank
Sure,
you very much.
Thank you very much,
Yep.
David. Any other public input? Seeing none, and thank you again, David. We'll move on to the November 9th meeting minutes. I know, Danielle, you shared those with us. I shared my feedback.
Oh, I have some comments.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I emailed myself this. No. Okay. Sorry. It's here. Okay, I printed it out. So I know there's a lot of color in this stuff to take, be concerned about. My main concern with the notes were just that, I think two things. One, when it said some RFAC members would like to see higher percentage of ADA compliant, but does need to be balanced. Steve said standard is 25 to 30%. I thought,
This is Bill asked for, do I have the actual numbers?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't speak loud.
oh no.
I
Okay.
just had to put them in, you know, so
Okay.
I wrote, we would like to see 75
Okay.
specifically, and then Steve in the RFP at the time had 50, and he had said that this is what standard is.
Okay.
That's why they said 50, but this is what we're asking.
Okay, and just to be clear, when I looked into this a little further, and I know this says ADA compliant, and I'm sure we probably said ADA compliant, but technically, according to law, all parks built after 2012 have to be 100% ADA compliant. I think what we're talking about here is actually accessibility, which is slightly different from ADA compliance. So when we're talking about, and I guess my comments on it were that if this is going to be goal, primary goal of our playground design process that we've been talking about from the beginning, I really want to make sure we far exceed the minimum requirements. Otherwise, it doesn't differentiate itself from what the current requirements are. And again, and this kind of steps away from actually affecting the meeting minutes and just starts becoming another topic of conversation. But I do just want to make sure that we
I have it
specify
here.
that.
I have those here, yep, this is, remember, this
Okay.
is not a personal thing, this is just a recount of what is discussed.
Yes.
This is not law going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I change safe, compliant, and accessible,
Yeah, and again, your memory of it is probably true. We probably said ADA compliant, but I do think we should probably be clear that we know that it has to be 100% ADA compliant. I want to make a comment about the hiding spaces. Note that some of the committee members noted that this needs to be, the concerns about small spaces needs to be balanced with the fact that small children appreciate small spaces, and that, things like the dungeon space in the castle in the trees is a big favorite of kids because they like having spaces that are, I just wanted to be noted that we want to balance that. And the final, well, there's one small typo, it says fundraise instead of fundraising, no, fundraiser. Never mind, it's not a typo, I just can't read. The final thing then is just that where Steve noted that the board didn't need to make a final vote on the RFP, I wanted it in the record that some of us strongly believed we should have had a final review of the RFP, because that was well voiced during the last meeting, that some of us did believe we really should, given the point of us existing is to have input before it goes out, so.
So we made the final vote by affirmation, however, not everybody was comfortable with that, just a line.
Was it that, yeah, some members wanted,
I just said, some members strongly believed that the RFP should have been reviewed prior to publicly being submitted to, out for bid. Just thought that should be, anyway. You're very thorough. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I guess next time I'll email you.
No, it's okay. I just wanna make sure that I, have it, cause we're gonna vote, so I'll make these changes and submit it with the town.
so, can I make a motion that with those changes, that we would approve the minutes for November 9th, 2017?
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor?
I-
Aye. Great. The next item on our agenda is Miles Plunkett and an Eagle Scout project update.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Miles, how are you?
Thanks.
I'm doing good. As you know, I've recently completed my Eagle project, which was to build animal habitats and kiosks for the Roberts Field, like trails and such. It ended up coming out really great. I don't know if you guys have stopped by and seen some of them, but
From the bat boxes. I saw the bat boxes by the playground. I have to say I haven't seen anything else but those.
We checked it out. That's great.
it ended up working out really well. It took a lot longer than I originally expected, but it ended up being really interesting. The final numbers for habitats wise is I ended up building and installing 4 bat boxes, 2 mason bee duck boxes, 2 wood duck houses, 1 barred owl house, 2 hawk houses, 3 bird houses, and then 2 kiosks.
Well done.
In this, I included some images of the process on building and installing them. And I hope they end up bringing new local wildlife to the park, and hopefully people can see them and learn more about them.
You did a fantastic job. You did not only from the beginning when you did the investigation on the types of species that you wanted to target for houses, but then developing the boxes, building them, installing them. You did just an A+ job. So thank you very much. You really added a lot to the park. And I think once we are able to sort of incorporate the learning element that we've talked about in the playground and sort of tie that all together, it's going to be nice because it's really going to bring the whole park together. So you've made a real difference in the park, and we really appreciate all of your hard work and thoughtfulness.
It was a lot of fun. I definitely learned a lot too. So
Great, that's awesome.
And you learned that most projects take more time than your original.
Yeah, the good ones do for sure.
That's a key thing.
The good ones for sure.
Yes.
So, and thanks to all of your fellow scouts. I know you had a lot of folks that helped you with this, and your parents as well. And your brother, and thank you very much for everything. So you guys made a real difference in the park, and it'll be there for years and years and years. So, good job.
thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
All right. So we'll move into the design and construction discussion. And for folks watching at home in the recorded version of this meeting, all of this information, including the meeting presentation document, is available at robertsfield.org. So you can follow along with us if you have questions about the information that we're presenting. So the first thing that we wanted to do was to give a quick update about where we stand with the RFP. The RFP went out on November 20, was
It
it?
was 16th or something?
Yeah, it was,
Was it? I could be making that up. I thought it was the 16th.
I think it was the 16th, yeah.
I think it was.
It says the 16th.
Thank you.
Where's good?
I've got a lot of numbers in my head. I heard from Steve that there had been dozens of requests for the RFP, which I think is a good thing. I think competition is going to bring a lot to this project. There's going to be a pre-bid meeting that's going to be held at Alpha Road for the folks that are pulling applications. And I think we may have an opportunity. I need to confirm with Steve, but I think we may have an opportunity to provide additional information at that meeting. So the property surveys might be a good thing to present there, as well as some of the tree protection guidelines, and we might want to provide the survey results as well.
I think that would be a very good idea. I had a chance to read through the survey results, and there's a lot of information in there, and I think it's a really good public point of interest that whoever takes the bid should take into consideration.
Yeah, I think especially in the comments, there's a lot of information that could help shape really the project. I guess the question that I would have with that is, one, we've said that we want to close the surveys on the 16th, so it may not be fully completed, at least a couple days, not a big deal. And then do we want to just basically give the survey results over, or do we want to try to provide some sort of a executive summary of it?
I think an executive summary is more likely to be taken into consideration.
So we're not going to have a meeting between now and then, so is it okay that I do the executive summary and pass it by you guys individually for feedback?
That sounds good
Okay,
Thank you for taking that on.
to me.
sure.
'Cause I definitely think we had a lot of responses from people who either had children who had different needs or knew people who had different needs, and I think there were some very valuable things in there of exactly what this community specifically is, looking for.
Right, I agree. And we'll have some more slides coming up that have more information, and we'll have a link to the results so people at home can see the specifics of what's there. The bids are going to close on December 21st at 10 a.m. We have a meeting scheduled for December 26th. So at the last meeting, Steve had said that he was going to give all of the members of the committee individual copies of all of the RFPs. He's going to deliver those to our house. And so we'll be responsible.
Sorry, you mean the bids, right? Not the RFP.
Yes, I'm sorry, the bids.
Okay.
So the folks that provide the bids, he's going to give us copies of those. And so we'll be responsible individually for going through those and coming back to the meeting and providing our recommendations for which ones we want to recommend, and sort of hash that out. So, and I kind of envision that we would have that discussion and then take a vote. If we have a dozen different proposals, there's a strong likelihood that we're going to not necessarily all agree on the same one.
I think we should definitely all make sure we come to the meeting having looked through the stuff where we're going to get it.
Yeah.
We'll be happy midnight by the time we leave.
Yeah.
That meeting.
So just we need to prepare for that December 26th meeting. And then the town manager, from the way that I understand the process working, the town manager is going to take the DPW's recommendation, is going to take our recommendations and then make his final recommendation of the award. And then the Board of Selectmen will finalize that at their January 8th meeting. I need to correct this one thing that I have on here, that the RFP is available. It is available at the town of Chelmsford.us. It's no longer available at robertsfield.org. I got an email from Steve today saying that was an improper procurement process to have the RFP posted there, because it didn't provide them the control that they needed. So I took that the RFP document off, but if you go to robertsfield.org, there's a link to the bid document section at the town of Chelmsford's website, and you can go there and then apply to see the RFP, and then you can they'll send you the RFP. So it's still available. It's
they
just
want to
that.
know your company name and stuff, but they don't seem to actually care if you put the information in as not applicable.
Well, I think the process is that if anything changes and they need to update it, so they need sort of a controlled list of the people that have access to it, so they can send them
Right. The
their-
contact information of some form.
right, if something changes, they just need that control. So I didn't realize that before I posted the RFP, but I changed that today after getting that email. So any questions about the RFP process, where we are, or anything?
Are we gonna have any chance to have a discussion with DPW, or is it kind of like their vote, our vote, and like?
I'm hopeful this 26th meeting will be a discussion.
I guess that's my question is, can we strongly encourage someone from the DPW to actually attend so that we can have an actual conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I shared my expectations with Steve and with the town manager that, you know, my expectations are that if we have a time-sensitive, critical part of the project that's going on, that, you know, either Steve, Gary, or Nick should be at the meeting.
I agree.
But, you know, it is what it is. Any other comments or questions about the RFP?
Just one
Yes.
general comment. You've received dozens. I congratulate you over the course of 2.5 days, taking away holidays and weekends to get through that.
Yeah, it's
quite a
going.
bit.
It'll be, yeah, and considering the amount of information that's probably going to be in there, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But you know, like with this whole process, it's been a, you know, hurry up and wait, or wait and hurry up, depending on where you are. We got to get through it to pick the best one. So, and I mean, just to share my thinking on the process was I was going to kind of create sort of a grid of evaluation criteria. You know, like.
Previous inclusive playground experience.
Yeah, just all those things that are listed in the front of the RFP about, you know,
And you can score each
Yeah,
one
and
and
just
have
kinda
a
score.
little,
right.
overview of each one. right?
Because it's not going to all be about
If you
necessarily
come
the
up with a
design.
scoring criteria, can you share it?
I will, just don't feel like you have to follow
No,
it.
no,
I don't-
but that would be good, because it makes a good point that this is going to be a very busy, short time frame.
It's going to be a lot of reading, a lot of tedious.
And we have to do the meeting on the 26th, is that it?
That was the only, I remember at our
Okay.
last meeting, we tried
I
really hard.
had in my calendar
I
that we
know.
have a meeting on the 20th, is that just a?
We canceled that.
Okay, I'll just
Yeah.
cancel that, I'll be for that
I
show.
thought that was
Any other comments or questions? So I did update the milestones a bit. We changed obviously the last day to play to December 2nd since our last meeting, and that was held, and we'll get into a recap on that. I also, Steve gave me feedback that the town manager didn't need to approve the purchase of the new playground equipment, so I took the town manager approval off of the February 2018 line item for purchasing new equipment. But other than that, everything I think is still the same from the last meeting.
Do we have any new information about when they're actually moving the playground?
So the last time that I spoke with Steve, and thank you for asking that, the last time that I spoke with him was the day before. It was Friday, December 1st, and he said that it was either going to be the end of this week or the following week, and it was based on scheduling of their existing work. They had a job that they were working on at the I forget, it was a dam that they were working on. I forget where it was. They were repairing, and then also they had to take into account the weather. So my understanding was that I expect it to probably be next week sometime. And I asked him for as much lead time as possible because we wanted to do a time-lapse video of them taking it down, and also do some video shots of
We should probably
the
also
work.
put up a sign as soon as we're done.
Yeah, right. And he'll need to post it too, so to do the work. So there'll have to be some sort of an advance notice, but that's at least where we were. And I also want to say again too, because I've had this question come up a number of times since the last meeting, the existing bricks, the carved bricks that are there, will absolutely be part of the new design. They will be incorporated. They'll be saved. They're valued, and we're gonna use them as part of the new playground. We're actually going to talk about expanding that into a new gift brick campaign. So those gift bricks are I know that it's important to the community and it's important to us, and it's been part of the master plan from the beginning to include those. So those will be included.
And the entryway, if at all
Yep.
structurally continuously possible.
So I also had a conversation with Steve about that, and they're going to do an evaluation on the the integrity of it. Thank you. And if they can, the goal is to support it and then strap it and then actually move it with heavy equipment either off to the side or to move it off-site. And then to use that once the playground design is done, to sort of hopefully the design will incorporate that into the new playground. So it could be either the entryway or maybe it's part of an entryway to a toddler section or something else. But the goal is to try to incorporate it if it's structurally sound. So those are the two things. And then Jim, you also sent us a picture of a plaque that was dedicated for the swing sets.
Right.
And Steve's going to save that plaque as well. And then also the main plaque for the playground from the original, well, the second iteration of Friendship Park is going to be saved as well. And then at some point we're probably going to need to talk about creating some kind of a monument garden kind of thing to house these things, right? That might
History
include
plaques of Friendship Park.
yeah, because we can't put it on the new swings because it's not technically, they're not really
Right.
doing it, but we don't want to get rid of it, we want to save it. So
Appreciation for history.
right, exactly.
Some sort of,
That maybe goes along with the corporate sponsorship sections
Right.
and stuff too. So that doesn't have to be decided tonight, but at least that we need to be thinking about that.
Can I just ask a
Yes.
question? Stephanie Lanzella, 232 Westwood Street. Are the trees that were marked also staying?
It's a great question. We have a whole section coming up.
Right into the whole tree conversation.
Okay.
It will be
Shame for it.
extensive.
So I will just let you know that as a Girl Scout, when I was young, I planted one of those trees. I have photos that I could bring in and
That'd be
show
awesome.
you. But it's something that, I think is, an important part of the park.
I think everyone here has great plans to try to keep as many
Okay.
trees as possible.
Okay.
Do you know which
Our
one you
goal
planted?
is to keep-
The one that is at the bottom of the circular slide.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
I think with a picture, we'll make sure that we talk about that when we get there so we can identify it. I'd love to be able to post those pictures too if you have
Yeah,
those.
I do have them. I was just looking through pictures and found them.
That's great. We'll get into to that actually now. So
She's not a plant.
so these are just some of the photographs of the trees, mainly in the playground, and we'll get into a discussion. Jim Martin, who's a certified arborist, retired certified arborist, actually conducted an inventory of all the trees that are in not only the playground construction area, but also throughout sort of the perimeter of the park, and then along Westford Street and Old Westford Road as well. I this week sent Steve an email saying he had mentioned that that the town was going to hire a arborist to provide a second opinion on the conditions of the trees in the playground. And so I asked if once he had that done, and especially if he had it done for this meeting, if he could share that with us. And then I also brought up that, like I said, I talked to him the Friday before, and I forgot to mention to him or talk to him the specifics about the tree protection during demolition. At the last meeting, we talked about the tree protection guidelines that we created for the master plan process. And that when those tree protection guidelines were created, that I think at least in my mind, it was protection guidelines that would be implemented for not only construction, but also for demolition. So I brought that up in this email and then asked if we could discuss it Wednesday, but he's not here. So I'll just share what he wrote back to me. And this is from his email. As I've said before, we'll do what we can to stay away from the trees during demo, but there will be times where we will need to get within the zone as there is no other way to do it. And the zone that he's referring to is the construction zone for the protection zone for each of the trees, which is 12 times the diameter of the circumference of the
It's 12 times the diameter of the trunk.
trunk. That's the word.
So if it's a 1 foot trunk, then it would have a protection zone 12 feet.
Okay. And then he went on to say that, my feeling on the zone, it's overkill, and never on any job I've ever been on has there been such a restriction. Not to mention our opinion on the front 3 trees, that they should be removed. So this is something that I brought up last last week that he had said to me in private, well, not in private, but in a meeting, that he and Nick believe that the front 3 trees, which we'll get into more detail on, should be removed. And he didn't share what his reasoning was here, so I would defer to him for that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, about not planning on attending today, so he's not here. This is just a close-up of the site plan with the protected trees highlighted in yellow. And the 3 trees that the DPW is most concerned about and wants to look at removing are 7, 8, and 9. And those are the ones that are on the top right.
9 would be her tree.
Yeah, I think 9 is.
10 is her tree. 10.
I think 10.
10.
Oh,
Because
10.
9 is over by the top
Although I
there.
think
Yes.
it was another Girl Scout troop that planted 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Although I do know that at some point in time, the park was vandalized and trees were cut down.
Oh.
It was probably 3 or 4 years after we planted them. So I'm not sure if 9 would also be like the original tree that was
Right.
planted by the tree, so.
Okay. And then 12 is on, obviously, a property line, 45, 51, 54, 56. Those are in areas that are overgrown with bittersweet, and Jim and Barry and myself, on Thursday before the last day to play, went out and cleared away a lot of the bittersweet around the base of the tree, and then pulled a lot of the vines out of the interior of the tree, and then Jim did an assessment again on those trees. And those were marked as protected. So basically what we did was we took the trees that were inventoried for the master plan and then cleaned up around them where we could, and then marked all of them as the master plan noted as being protected.
Excuse me, there are trees within that area that we did not mark to be protected.
Because,
Well, some of them are dead, some of them are just not worth fighting about, to be quite honest.
right,
We'd like to leave some of those, but you're not gonna argue over any
Right.
particular one.
I,
Just because they're not
hoping-
on there doesn't mean that you're hoping they tear them down. If they're not on there, we still would prefer to leave
I
stuff
think
if they're
it-
healthy.
with safety considerations and
Right,
everything.
right,
Yes,
if
I
things
think
are
it
healthy.
adds to it
Right.
rather than takes it away, you take it away and you have nothing.
I just wanna make sure it's clear that just because it's not on there
We,
doesn't
we
mean
have
we
not
want their clear.
recommended that any tree be taken down, let's put it that way.
but the ones that were marked with the orange ribbons as protected, those were all at least in fair condition, correct? And most were in good, and the conditions are all noted in the tree protection guidelines. There's a file that exists that has a larger map like this, along with a spreadsheet of all the different trees and their conditions and sizes and such. So, Jim, this is the information that you provided. I don't know if you want.
Right,
So,
and this is out in front. This is actually, it's an eating apple. At first I thought it was a crab apple, but it's not. It's an eating apple. 15-inch trunk, 300 square feet of shade.
could you join us, Jim, so the microphone can
sure.
pick you up, please?
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
So,
Do you know if the entryway thing is within the 15 times?
probably, it would be, 6 times? No, you can kind of scale it out. And I don't think that should be an issue at all.
I'm sorry, I have a quick question about the 12 times thing. I'm realizing, is the 12 times the radius of the circle around the tree or the diameter?
It's the diameter of the tree trunk,
Right, but of the circle,
and then that would be,
is this, if this is the whole protected area?
right,
Is that 12 times,
that, yeah.
is the radius of that 12 times the,
No, it's the diameter,
okay, so it's only 6 times
right,
the,
yeah,
the radius of the protected area is only 6 times the diameter of the tree.
yes ma'am.
Okay.
So what would that? So if the diameter is 15 inches,
So it would be somewhere around 60, 70, 90,
It would be 90
no, about 90
Inches.
inches.
away
Right.
from
which is
the
how
tree.
many feet?
The,
Well, in this
Seven
case, it
and a
would be half of that.
so Well,
No.
if the trunk diameter is 15 inches, then you want 6 times that
I want
in any
15 feet.
direction. So that's
15 feet.
diameter
Diameter.
around the tree.
So this would mean it
So
would
they
be
still need
7.5
7.5
feet
Right.
away from the
So you
trunk.
just need protection 7.5 feet
Right.
in any direction
Yeah.
around the trunk.
And I don't think that, kind of noted, I was evidently talking to your husband at the play day,
Yes.
and he mentioned the fact that this had been what, a family property?
So this actually was the Roberts Farm, which is
Okay.
what, this field was named after. I've been talking to my grandfather a lot lately, he did mention that, young Mr. Roberts liked to ride his tractor shirtless to show off his big muscles. But, so this land was actually part of his farm. His barn burnt down, and then the town purchased the land from him to build a school in this space. And the school never came up. They never, I guess they did that for a lot of different places. They purchased land to build a school. They didn't end up building a school. So that's, and we've always abutted that. The farm, Lupien's farm has always abutted the.
My thought, from what I understood, was that had been an orchard at one time.
It was, yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if that is one of the original apple trees from the orchard.
How old do you think that tree is?
Oh, 40 years maybe. Maybe slightly longer than that. I don't know.
Nice historic attachment to the past.
It has some value, and just to cut it down just for the sake of convenience is
Because it
hard to
litters-
swallow.
litters apples on the ground, which are annoying to some people apparently.
Well, God, the leaves will be annoying to somebody.
I think that it's important to know too that, I mean, if you go there now or if you've gone there over the last few months, you don't see apples on the ground because I think the animals eat it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fact that we're trying to encourage wildlife habitat.
I've been on the property for a number of years, and this fall was the first time I saw one apple.
Right. Well, the apples were crazy this year. I have several apple trees in my backyard.
Mhm.
They all were.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, I think it has some value. It's reasonably healthy for an apple tree.
Okay. Tree number 8, that would be the one moving, I'm sorry,
Question
Jerry.
to Jim Barry, Jefferson, 5 Grand Road. Jim, we were talking earlier about value. Does it make sense to try to put a dollar value to some of these trees? Does it help put things in perspective in some people's mind?
I don't know. That would be up to the committee.
How would you assign a value to?
Well,
How much would it cost to replace a tree of that age?
okay, there are a number of ways of appraising trees. One is simply to look at it and say, well, how much would it cost to replace that tree? That is so big that you run into problems
Install problems.
moving the tree is the problem, because that would have probably a 15-foot diameter root ball. And going down the road, besides cost, it would be very difficult. So probably if it was a 10-inch tree, we're probably looking somewhere around $10,000 or $15,000 top of the head. If you folks want an appraisal, let me know, and we'll run some numbers.
I think estimates are fine for our purposes.
Yeah,
right?
I
I mean, as
think-
long as you feel like they're grounded in reality.
Yeah,
Just comment on that. Jim, I think you said at one point, you could also value it just based upon a shade property.
Right.
And if you were to try to put up a structure,
yeah.
provide that much
Right.
shade, what would you be looking at?
I can't remember, I think it was $41 per square foot for the shade structure.
I forget, yeah.
So in that case, it would be 41 times this, which would kick it up to,
$12,300.
not chunk change, sorry. That is another way of evaluating.
I raise this because some people just think in terms of dollars.
Right. No, I think
We
it's
have to be
valuable.
prepared for
And I
that.
think if we can do it and make it reasonable, I think it's helpful.
So 10 to 15, you feel good about that number? The $10,000 to $15,000.
Yeah, that's, one of the last big trees that I moved, it was $10,000. Slightly different circumstances than it was 10, 15 years ago, so inflation and everything else, I'm sure, has kicked in.
Okay. Tree number 8.
Okay, this is a sugar maple, a little less than 15 inches in diameter, 400 square feet of shade. Its condition isn't fair. It has sucker damage on the trunk, and some people will interpret that as borers. It's not. These are birds that come along and they will peck a hole in the tree to make it bleed, if you will, go next door and make a nice, neat, straight line. Then when the insects will come to feed on the sap, and they'll come along and feed on the insects.
Interesting.
Smart.
So,
They-
and they like some trees and not other trees, and I have no idea how to predict. That's a favorite.
So,
But
I don't know, maybe if you can make a syrup out of, I assume sugar maple, you can
Oh,
make
yeah.
syrup out of it, so.
well, they will hit a number of other trees. They'll hit apples and other things. Any of the tree saps are sweet.
so this tree seems to have kind of a split personality. One side of it, the right-hand side on this picture,
Right.
always looks kind of full, but the left-hand side looks
Right.
a little sparse, and there seems to be some sort of black.
And this okay, black is not important. It does have girdling roots, and this is a condition where the roots will start to strangle the trunk. Now, this is a correctable problem, but this is the reason that is not as in good a condition as I'd like to see.
And what causes girdling roots? Is it just something that happens? or is it-
Sometimes it's the species, other times it's the location. Soil this has kind of a restricted root area.
Right.
I would imagine the soil on the outside where it's fuller is healthier than the soil on the inside of the playground where it's.
Well, on the inside of the fence, I'm sure the soil is more compacted.
Right.
Well, on the inside, actually, it's what do you call it? It's they got the wooden
Right.
things, so it's like
So
a
it's
raised.
Right.
kind of in a pot.
Right, and that's probably what's.
That's not helping.
Okay.
But anyways, I don't know, again, my opinion is it's still worth keeping.
What would a value be for something like this one?
I'm gonna say about the same.
It's got-
Again, I'm up at that 10-inch caliper max. Now, there are other ways of appraising trees besides replacement value. But
Any other comments on this guy? Questions? The next tree, another one.
Yeah, this one is a Bradford pear. This had been vandalized sometime in the not too distant future. A 15-inch trunk. Because of storm damage and the vandalism, I calculated it somewhere around 170 square feet. It's got kind of an odd canopy to it. It's not circular. Condition is good. Not perfect, but good. Again, vandalized and old storm damage.
Okay, and the value for this one, you would say?
I don't know, 12 to 15 maybe.
Any other comments or questions about this?
I do. I read Steve's comments, but what I don't understand is what his motivation is. Has he shared that?
The only thing that they shared with me was that they were messy,
Messy.
and that the tree number 8 had sort of that split personality, had the sap circle holes, and had some sort of a black moldiness on the, or some sort of blackness on the trunk of the lesser side of this particular number 8. And
Yeah, he said a number of times that they're messy, like they're a problem to clean up after.
My kids are messy. I don't get rid of them.
Yeah, it's the
No,
nature. Nature isn't really. There's dirt out there. It's kind of
And I don't want to speak from, that's just my impression from the conversations I've had with him. He may have a whole other rationale for it. I don't know.
Comment? David's comment raised another thought. Trees obviously have sound absorption capability, noise absorption.
Well,
And I don't know if that's something that can and or should be attempted to be quantified. Because that would be something that we care about.
When they got rid of the bittersweet, we cleared to us in our backyard.
The noise difference?
No, the water difference.
What do you mean? How do you,
Oh.
It got wetter in the back.
like standing wetter or, yeah?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
But
I'm
thinking
sure
of
if
the
it
sound
physically
of
blocked it
these-
and also sucked some of it.
Yes,
Exactly.
the woods will absorb that, I don't know how much.
Yeah. That I don't know.
Interesting.
the black, I don't know, it might be there. I've been diagnosing plants for a lot of years, I didn't even notice it. Last year, there was a lot of in 16, there was a lot of problems with Norway maples, and it was related to the abnormal amount of rain that we had. Again, I saw nothing that would make me even think about taking it down.
Okay, and does the black normally, I mean,
I think it's kind of like dandruff. You wish you didn't have it, but it's not life-threatening.
okay. And the fact that it's sort of on the lesser side of it might just mean that it's,
It might be more shade. I really can't tell you. But,
okay, so, tree 10?
yeah, this is a little leaf linden. This is a very, I don't know, very dense shade, very dense growing plant, 500 square feet. It's in good condition. It does need some proper pruning. The branches are a little bit low, so they can be gently taken up so people can walk underneath it without sending Bonsai Bob in there with his chainsaw to cut them down.
So all of these trees really though do need that attention.
There's
to
still
be
a little
pruned
bit,
up. Yeah, I mean, they all really need to be pruned up, and, you feel like that should happen before or after?
I think it's after. I usually, it can go either way. I think it provides hopefully a little bit more protection to the trunk and the base roots.
And I'd imagine if it's already going through some sort of shock, you don't want to start it out.
Right,
And,
you know, this
you know,
is not
setting it
something
up
where you
for-
wanna
You don't want to open.
stress it.
Right, you don't want to open effectively wounds on it that are gonna, be open to stuff when people are going through with equipment that has been wherever. I would imagine you have construction equipment bringing stuff in from other places, maybe.
Possible, but I don't think it's probably a real big issue. It's just leaving it there. Hopefully this will keep the boys away from it. And, you know, and then it can always be lifted up later on.
So, all three of these are about the same diameter trunks.
Right,
So
yeah.
you're talking about an 8 foot with the existing tree protection guidelines.
Right,
It's about
they'd
an
all
8 foot fence, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And 8 feet on this particular tree, would that be outside of the drip line of
I
the canopy?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
So, would you be so I guess the major trauma to the tree is going to come from compaction and striking the tree trunk, right?
Well, I'm more worried about the roots than I am anything else. This seems to do it. They had the same issue at the library. There were tree protection standards that the town did not enforce. And they lost a perfectly good 15-inch sugar maple because of it. And of course, they damaged a bunch of other trees, which are going to take longer to die.
So I understand the concern that, you know, they're gonna have to get equipment in here, and like the fencing is really close, pretty close to these 3 trees. So if they had to make a concession of, okay, we can't do an 8-foot protective, fence, we could do, 5-foot or 6-foot, would you be willing
And I'd
to?
say probably take them down.
Really?
You know, it's, with all of these, there's a certain amount of risk because of damage,
Okay.
you know, and the closer you get, the more it comes. And it doesn't have to be, it can only be on one side. There's something about the roots in that protection zone that are very sensitive and very important to the tree. Now, whether it's you damage the root and the disease gets in and goes up to the trunk and then that kills it,
Right.
or it throws off the balance of nutrition or other growth regulators or whatever, I really don't know.
Okay.
But it's a pretty common standard. A nurseryman goes out to dig a tree in the ground. He follows essentially the same standard to take enough roots to get it up.
Okay.
And this is basically following along in that position.
So on that critical zone, then there's no wiggle room for.
There's very little. And on these things, to get the fence out of the way, I don't think they'd really need much. Take a backhoe, a chain, lift it right up. They don't have to drive up next to the tree, like what was done at the library.
Okay.
And I think this tree, I think what we're saying, you would have to go underneath the canopy to get within the protection zone
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Now, some of the other ones, maybe not.
But I think our biggest concern was actually with this tree being so close to the equipment. I think that, and maybe I was the only one who was confused about this,
Yeah.
the 12 times diameter thing.
Right.
I was thinking 12 times diameter, the radius
Right,
out in any direction. And it's really only 6 times,
right,
which is still substantial.
yeah,
But 7 or 8 feet is a lot different from 16 feet.
right. And again, it
And I
depends
think
on,
that there's probably at least that much space around it, which
Right.
other than the tables that are there,
Right.
I think, I don't know.
right. And again, it depends on the equipment operator. If they're careful and they're good, there shouldn't be an issue. Otherwise, you know, I don't know.
I mean, we're basically talking 8 feet is, a 6-foot person, a little bit further than a 6-foot person's arms
Yeah.
span. It's not a huge distance
No.
away from a tree.
And it falls underneath the canopy.
Right.
And
Okay.
these are pretty much national standards.
Right.
It's telling that Steve had never done it before. That,
Is this the tree that your Girl Scouts
I
planted?
do believe it is, yeah.
That's amazing.
good job.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful tree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask how long ago it was?
The park had just opened, and my mother was the Girl Scout leader.
Mm-hmm.
And she was also part of the committee to build this playground.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
so it was very close to
Okay.
when
So
it was.
like 93,
Mm.
95?
Yeah,
95.
I was thinking that I was in and around 10 years old, so that would be right there.
David?
Not as in a butter, but as a resident, right? I drive down Old Westford Road every single day. Robertsfield is basically clear to all of the edges except trees. This is the one visual area of the entire park where you can say, it's a park-like feeling. The trees are beautiful in all seasons. I think if you take away any of these trees, you're really taking away the character of that playground. Because all it's going to be at that point is a playground that sticks out, right? Which is great, right? But this gives it the park-like setting. So definitely preserving these trees and protecting them as much as possible is paramount.
Definitely given our nature theme, it would really
Mm-hmm.
behoove us to keep the nature that already exists.
Just just an interesting comment. I was thinking about what you said about the library and the tree they lost. So the tree they lost was worth more than all of the folks that donated trees to the largest memorial agreement,
I don't know.
approximately, from what I remember of
Okay.
the list. I mean, it's just, you think about things like that, and it makes you kind of look at things differently.
Yeah.
Can I interject something
Yes.
kind of strange and random? I don't know if anybody's been to Drumlin Farm, but when they had a very big tree come down, they like resin dipped it or something and preserved it, and it's actually this sensory tree play area. They screwed on like frogs and made nests in it, so although the tree was lost, I mean, it essentially
Mhm.
lives on, and I wondered, I have no idea how much that costs, but say we were to lose a tree, if we could try to do something like that, because it fits
That's
very
cool.
much with our nature. I can grab a picture, I'll be there tomorrow, my son goes to school. But I don't know if you'd ever heard of that, Jim, like, I wanna say it's resin dip, they'll take a picture of what they wrote.
Okay,
Um,
I know that
I
some
don't wanna,
places
That
they
would make
do
some
some pretty
sense.
imaginative things.
yeah, and I mean, it's really cool, it's sensory things, so some of the areas are touch, some are smell, you know, there's sticks to bang on a certain
Yeah.
part, I mean,
Yeah.
it's great, my kids climb all over it. It's unfortunately now probably going to go as they're doing new construction there, and it's kind of been beaten to death over the past 25 years. But I thought, if we lose a tree, could we, if our budget is there, do
Right.
something like that, so it's not totally
Or the
gone.
imagination is there.
Mhm.
Well, it actually raises another question too of, you know, is the demolition really the time where we should be taking trees out, or is it during the design process of the playground? Because the designers may take a look at this and say, you know, we want to orient it, the equipment in a certain way so that they can benefit from the shade that these trees provide. But if we, you know, cut them out during demolition,
Yeah.
you won't have that opportunity, you know?
Of course, then that asks the question, why have a designer if you've got DPW that's gonna do the design work? Save some money.
No, we're gonna hire a contractor, we're gonna have a designer.
Okay, no, just one of my comments, that's all.
Any other comments on the Girl Scout Planet tree number 10? And this is the sort of the showpiece of the playground.
Yeah.
I think everybody's in agreement
Yeah.
that this one is gonna be protected and saved.
You know, and that's the happy camper of the group. It's a good,
Farther away from the play zone, so.
less restricted route zone, and sometimes it's, who knows,
Yeah.
you know.
This is the flowery red maple in the back
Yeah.
of the property. back
And this, even this one needs some pruning, proper pruning. Does have some dead wood, you know, it's, you know, but it's in good condition, I think anyways.
And this is the end of the picture part, but this is
Okay.
tree number 12. This is the oak tree that is on the property line closest to your property, David, I believe.
That's one of the bat boxes.
It's the one with the bat boxes on it. It's
Yeah.
a tall oak tree.
And that one, the trunk looks bigger, but I measured it. In fact, I went over today to measure it again, but it's only 28 inches. But it's a big guy. I calculated again about 900 square feet, and I'm not real comfortable with that because some of it's on the other property. So it's an estimate of how much shade it casts. Condition again is good. The problem here is the DPW went in and did some pruning that was done improperly when they were asked to, what was it? They were gonna go in for the bittersweet. They took down a bunch of trees along the property line, and then they pruned a couple of good-sized branches off of this guy and didn't do it right.
What would you assign a value for this oak tree?
I'm gonna pass on that one.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on this tree?
I assume you could say that tree is more than the other trees, other gardens, right?
Yeah,
So you could say more than
Yeah,
50.
yeah.
In my notes.
Okay, and again, these are my thoughts on this. They provide shade and cooling, which is better than a play structure or a structure which just provides shade. They're attractive in and of themselves, they're valuable, and they are irreplaceable. You take one down, you're never gonna get the same one back. Maybe your grandchildren will see it, but basically it's lost.
And planting new trees is always a possibility, but that's a 20-year proposition to get to replace.
And that's only if it's done well.
Good job.
Do you have daughters in Girl Scouts that want to plant trees?
I have 2 daughters and 2 sons, and I actually think that that would be an amazing opportunity for some of the scouting groups in town to be able to have that same opportunity that I had, to be part of this in that way.
Well,
I agree.
we'll be looking for volunteers for the
Yeah.
build process for sure.
Mhm.
And hopefully we could mention to during the playground that we could consider adding more trees around the outside of the playground.
Yeah. Plant new trees.
I think in addition to the scouting troops, there are other groups in town that, have a vested interest in, making Roberts Field as nice as it can possibly be. I mean, even my neighborhood might come together and say, let's buy a tree to put it.
Right, that's a good point.
Yep.
Any other comments on the tree? This is the last slide for the tree protection guidelines. Jim, thank you very much for your help. Barry, thank you as well. I guess with this, are you guys comfortable with me drafting sort of a summary of the scope of what we talked about today and providing that to Steve and the DPW and
As a formal memo from our group, I think it's definitely worthwhile.
do you guys want to take a vote that, do you want to make a recommendation that the trees be protected as of the tree protection guidelines that are identified in the master plan? Do you want to just take a vote for that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so I'll make a motion that we write a summary of our thoughts about protecting these trees, and that the summary include that the trees, that the tree protection guidelines that are outlined in the master plan be initiated for the demolition as well as the construction.
Overton has.
One thing,
Yes,
and that they be enforced.
okay. Be initiated and enforced during demolition and construction. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
So all in favor? Aye?
Right.
Great, thank you. So the next bit of this the presentation is a recap of where we are with our survey. We opened up a online survey, a 6-question online survey, to sort of get a feel for what people what they wanted to see, what was most important at the playground, and then some open-ended questions about if there were any special needs that needed to be addressed, and then any just open-ended questions on just anything that they felt that they wanted to share with us on the development. We've had a great response. We've had 525 survey responses, which I think is probably of the surveys that I've done, that's one of the better ones. So I'm pleased with that. And most importantly, we've gotten 246 emails from the forum, which tripled our database of emails for sending out
We
information.
did 246 addresses.
Yes,
Okay.
so we get 246 basically volunteer names to join our update list. So it's 246 more people that we can let know what we're doing and get involved in the
I
process.
don't know if any of those are double from the last ever play, but you have a whole host more coming from that.
So that's a big win.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, we had hundreds of comments. You can, if you go to the link that's here, the surveymonkey.com results and the string of random letters, you can see the results of it. Once the survey's closed on December 16th, we'll publish a PDF of the actual results so people can look at them in specifics. But I think we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, or we are in the process of accomplishing what we wanted to accomplish, which is We have nice open comments. We have an idea of the breakouts of the age groups that are going to come to the playground, which is pretty balanced.
I was really surprised, actually, by how large the 6 to 12 group was.
I thought it was going to be much
I
older.
thought it was gonna be
Yeah.
substantially shifted to the younger group, that you had a lot more of the 6 and
Yeah, I agree. So there's some good learning there. And then we listed out the individual different types of structures and stuff that could go on in the playground. So we have a lot of feedback on those as well. So I think it's been a success. This is question 3, and I just created a word cloud from it just to show, and it just basically shows sort of some of the most frequently used words that are in this question. And this is the question that we asked if anybody had any special needs or accommodations that we needed to make sure we planned for. And it was good for me to see this because, I mean, this is kind of what we've been talking about all throughout this process.
Yeah.
And this is what the community wants to see. You know, it's the accessibility, it's the universal design, you know, slides, it's the fun stuff too. But it's, you know, it's all the things that we've been talking about. And I think, as we mentioned, we'll share this with the people who have pulled the RFP so they can see these comments firsthand and sort of kind of help them to craft their design.
Yeah, I thought it was particularly good because we're sitting here talking about it a lot, but I don't think any of us specifically has any intimate knowledge of what is actually needed. I don't think any of us have actual, you know, children or close friends with children who have specific needs that we knew about, and it was very good to read a number of comments from a number of people of how much of a need this is in our community. So
I agree. And
I felt good that we were doing something that was, you know,
I agree. And there were some moments where it was kind of sad too. I mean, there were some comments. Anyway, there were some comments that, you know, there were kids that had been turned away, and we were addressing that, so that's a good thing. Question 5. These were just sort of the open-ended question. If anybody had any comments or concerns, it's interesting that bathrooms are coming up again, right? So I want to say, you know, again, that part of the master plan is we're going to have. It's not going to be a permanent structure with you know, with running water and such, but there's going to be a porta potty, and there's going to be a shade structure over the porta potty. It'll be at least one handicap-sized porta potty, kind of what's there now. So it's large enough where you can kind of get your smaller kids in there and kind of keep them corralled. There also will be.
That was my note during the
Hands in the
last
air.
one. Exactly.
Or you put their hands into their jacket
tell my
and
Right.
zip their jacket.
But at least
To
they're in
hold
that
her
room.
hands with herself.
Yeah.
Or I lock them in the car and I go, there, I'm on camera.
Right. And then there'll be some sort of a seating thing where the diapers can get changed or.
Do we have any idea of when that will be implemented? Because I know that's not officially part of the playground, and therefore it's part of the extended master plan implementation. Do we have any idea?
We don't have anything yet, but that's going to be part of our charge moving forward. And I would assume that that's going to me, it seems like kind of a perfect community project, Eagle Scout type of thing. And I think we can get that one, make that one a priority, especially with the playground one in place.
Entrance for the shade structure over the bathroom.
I don't think it's even wide enough for that. But I will say that reading through the comments on this, again, brought home, you have, and anytime you get comments, there were we absolutely need bathrooms. Do not put bathrooms. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that is we will always have someone who we will not
You
You
can't
know.
please everybody.
appreciate what we go with, but it's definitely.
I think bathrooms, shade came up again. There were a lot of comments about saving the trees. You can see trees is on here. People wanted. I think I read a little bit that people were somewhat concerned that we're talking about style and nature and stuff, and they're like, you know what, that's all good for the adults, but let's just make it fun for the kids. So
Which I thought was an ironic comment to me, because as a child, something that looked like it was part of the forest or whatever, it would have been very exciting to me as a kid for it to like, oh, look at the trees, and it's like a fairy, like, you know, little elves with gnomes, and so.
to me, it was a good check because it's like, yeah, I could see where we could, you could get caught up in the
Yeah.
nature theme and making it look cool, but at the end of the day, it just needs to be fun.
Well, but we plan to have a design day exactly because of that with kids, because we do extensively want kids' input as much as we can, because I think, agreed, we'd like it to meet the kids' needs, that's kind of the goal.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
I did notice the Castle in the Trees came up a lot, and I would like to say that I don't know who made the Castle in the Trees playground, like who put in the bid for it.
Leathers and
Yeah.
Associates.
So I,
They did the original one and they went back to that designer to do the second one because they wanted to keep the feel
right,
the same, but my understanding here is we're not keeping the feel
no,
the same.
no. So I don't know if
but
they
they-
only do castle themed things.
No, they don't. They do amazing stuff.
But
I
we
was
might
somewhere
wanna
else.
consider seeing if they put in a bid, because everyone that I know loves Castle in the Trees. And they obviously did a local park, and they did community build aspect with
Who-
fundraising.
Who did you say was the,
It's Leathers and Associates. They're out of Ithaca, New York. I can ask Steve or in this email we draft, make that a
I
part
don't
of
know
it.
what their accessibles, oh, actually, no, I was Googling them earlier, I found out
Yeah.
there's something else, and they do inclusive
Mhm, they
like
do.
too, so.
just to make them aware, to make sure that they're aware of it. I would be surprised if they're not. It seems like a name that I've heard before, but
They've done a few around here.
yeah,
Um,
it may be one of the ones that they work with a lot, I don't know.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I say around a lot.
Is it okay to informally contact them and just say the RFP is coming out and could you take a look at it?
Yeah.
Or we could even just see if we can get a list of names from Steve already and just see if they're already on it, and we
Yeah.
don't have to look like we've done anything specific, cause I'm not trying, I don't want us to get into a condition where we look like we're trying to
Right.
go to someone over someone else, but I do think
Right,
that
right.
given that so many people have said Castle in the Trees is so awesome, we should keep in mind that people around here appreciate what Castle in the Trees people do,
Right.
so.
Would you mind sending that email just to Steve to see if they're
Yep.
on the list, and if not, if not, we can just kind of shoot them an email.
It's funny, my friends on the Littleton thing said, is Leathers and Associates bidding on yours? And I said, I don't know.
We're not actually in that loop.
Yeah.
Correct.
Just anecdotally, just to get this out there, on Friday when we were out there was another playground company that was taking measurements in
Oh.
preparation for their RFP. And one of the guys that was taking measurements said that the company that originally installed that playground that's there now is out of business, because we were talking about trying to find those guys to see if they were interested, and so
Mhm.
they're just no longer in business, so that's just to kind of wipe that one off the
Mhm.
to-do list. Any questions on the survey? So I'd like to have maybe one more last push. We close on the 16th, so my plan was to, around this weekend, is to put out one more push on Facebook and the patch and all those things. So if you guys could help support that.
And the emails that I have in my position but will give to you that we collected from the last day of play, they may not have people who just gave us the email address. We should make sure that
Okay,
gets out to them
okay.
from Saturday.
I'll add them to the list and we can send another reminder. If the survey's there, if you haven't had a chance to take it, please do.
We had a lot of good feedback, by the way, on your thing that you installed with the, I can type when it is.
The scaffolding thing.
The scaffolding,
The
with
signage?
yes.
Oh, good.
The signage.
It was
A lot
There were a lot of people
a
staring
lot
at
of
that.
people came to look at that and
Good.
had a lot of good things to say about that. So
Good.
that was worth the time and effort.
Great.
Yes.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments on the survey? So just a quick recap, good segue. We held the last day to play event last Saturday, December 2nd, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I feel like we were very successful in the publicity. We had an article in the Sun, the Independent. We had CTM News, Chelmsford Telemedia Newsbreak did a little segment on it, and then we had a slide up on there that rotated throughout their day on TV.
I'm just
I
gonna
have
say,
it on Macaroni Kid too.
Oh,
It
good.
was an event,
Excellent. I didn't know
events I
that.
can put on that.
I'll add it
I
to
meant to tell you, but.
I have to say, whatever you did to get the word out was very impressive, because it was not a
Mhm.
work day, and we had a lot of people. We had a lot, I mean, I was there the whole time frame, and we had a huge round in the morning, and then we had a little lull around lunch, and I was like, oh, okay. But then we had another huge round in the afternoon with like mostly young kids in the morning, and then like lunchtime happened, and then like mostly other kids in the afternoon, and it was very impressive. We had a lot of people very interested, so I think good job on the
Great.
publicity, and I think whatever you did is probably worthwhile doing again when we do the volunteer effort build.
Mhm.
Yes, we will. We'll talk a little bit more about that too later on. Some other stuff we can do. I think Marcus and we all kind of agreed that we had about 100 plus people in total for the day with kids and parents and stuff.
I couldn't.
Roughly?
I'm
I'm
really
terrible
horrible
at estimating
at
that. How
that.
many people are here?
I would say that is at least likely,
Okay.
because there were definitely multiple rounds of people who came through, and he was only there for a portion of it.
Right. And Barry Jefferson actually took a lot of photographs and took emails from folks that were there and forwarded those photographs with a little text thing to kind of commemorate the day for the parents, right?
Have you actually sent that out?
I was gonna say,
So-
I don't think you've sent that out
Oh, I didn't
yet,
know.
or you don't have my email address correctly.
It's going to be probably another week getting those out.
So Barry's going to send that out, so it's going to commemorate. It's kind of party pick kind of thing, which is
Yeah,
nice.
a lot of the moms said they loved that idea
Yeah.
too, so
And-
thank you for doing that.
I think tomorrow, the next day, Barry should have, he actually took a lot of video too, and he's created a video for the day, sort of a recap, which is really, I saw an early screening of it today, and it's really a beautiful video. Lots of great moments he captured. He's a very good photographer. And lots of nice shots of the kids and parents and people having fun and enjoying the playground one last time.
And again, it was not a warm day, and they were out in force. I mean, it was really well.
That's great.
Question, what about the drone?
The drone, the last picture of
Yeah.
yours from the drone.
The very last
My
picture.
kids loved it, I think all the kids loved it.
And
Oh, yeah,
I want to thank
that and the chop.
Yeah.
Andrew Wiener brought his drone out, and I think it was a big hit from what I heard. People loved it. The nice thing is too is that all the footage that Barry shot and Andrew shot are going to go towards the documentary that Telemedia is doing for this whole process. So we got lots of great footage. So it's a nice. It seemed like it was a nice afternoon.
The chalk was, as you noted, it was very well
Huge hit.
appreciated.
Yes.
We did
Great
have
idea.
a few. We spent some time at the very end running around and making sure that all things were non-offensive by the time we left the park. There were some
colorful.
as colorful as like 8-year-old boys get. It wasn't that colorful, but it was, there were enough things to block out. So, but I think it was very well appreciated, and there was lots of cool stuff. And I think Barry took some cute pictures of some of the drawings and
And
stuff that people.
I want to thank both of you guys. You guys took the lead on this and did a phenomenal job on the refreshments and organizing stuff, and most importantly, getting activities for the kids to do, which seemed to really go over well. From the video that I saw, the kids were having a blast. So great job.
I want to second that. You guys were absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Fun.
We covered off on the demolition date earlier, but like I said earlier, likely it's going to happen either the end of this week or next week, and the DPW is committed to providing as much notice as possible. And just to reiterate again that the car bricks, the swing and main plaque will be saved, and then they're trying to evaluate the entryway where the Friendship Park plaque is, to make sure that it's structurally sound, and if they can, they're going to support it, strap it, and move it to the side or move it off site.
And that was an Eagle Scout project by Reddy.
Yes, by Kevin Reddy, and there was actually some comments around that. I think he's really excited about it being saved as well. So the whole Reddy family's
The
kind
real
of
estate people?
yes, Reddy was.
He actually made a comment during the town meeting that I think he made a comment saying something like he made that, and even knowing that it was probably going to go away, he really wanted to support
Right.
the vote that night. So I thought that was good, and I hope we've gotten a message to him that we're doing our best to save the entryway if at all possible.
We have through Facebook. We have, and I'll just say, worst case, if they get into it and they realize that it's rotted and it just can't. Which I don't think is going to be the case. I think it's going to be able to be saved. But worst case, we will save the carved sign, and we will save the back plaque that has Kevin's name and all the information on who built it.
For our historic plaque section.
Right,
I
for
think
our
we'll figure out
memory garden or
Yes.
whatever it will be.
Can be part of the labyrinth.
Yeah.
We got Stephanie and Barry.
Quick question, when you refer to the cop sign, are you talking the green one on the left picture, or what are you talking about?
Yes,
Just cop
the actual Friendship Park green sign, because
sign? Okay.
that kind of ties into the other carved signs that are around the property, on Pollinator Park and then also on the walking trails. So to me, that's at least seems kind of like a theme
Yeah.
that we want to try to move forward with.
I was just curious if the notice board was being saved. I'm under the impression that was either a Boy Scout or Girl Scout project.
It's a good question. We didn't talk specifically about safety because it's kind of in rough shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine, I don't know if it has any, like, personal meaning, but I do believe that it was, I wanna say it was a Golden Wood project,
I'll,
I'm just not sure.
It occurs to me talking about the entryway and that sign. I know I mentioned this to you last day at the play about talking about having some sort of symbol to go forward. It might be really like an easy symbol for Friendship Park of a miniature sort of entryway with a green sign on it, like
Right.
a symbolization of that entryway might be a good branding thing for our Friendship Park stuff.
And I think it's an awesome idea. I'll let everyone know that we were contacted by a potential volunteer who's a professional designer who does a lot of collateral work and print and branding work. He was really excited about creating some branding and identity for Friendship Park, Friends of Roberts Field, and Roberts Field. So I'll definitely share that
We
with
should do
him.
like a tree with the entryway or something.
Right.
As a symbol of our appreciation for the trees.
So he's kind of given me some branding kind of questions that they asked to kind of start their process. Would you guys be interested in reviewing those
Yes.
questions as well? Okay, I can share those with you if you like. Yeah?
Yeah.
Would you prefer to look at them before I've added comments, or would you prefer to look at them after I've added comments? So I don't want to jade your opinions.
I can ignore comments until I make my own. I appreciate seeing the comments, so
Okay.
I go either way.
Okay, I'll send that out. I've got to finish it. I'll send it out by the end of this weekend.
That's great. Really appreciate getting volunteers of specific types like that. I think that will be huge going forward, where we have people with specific,
Skills.
that's the word I'm looking for.
Yes,
What is
absolutely.
he?
I mean, we've cobbled stuff together. We've
Yeah.
kind of made it work, but to have a professional, I think is going to make a big, big difference.
Yeah.
So any other comments about last day to play? So fundraising discussion, just to bring everybody up to date, we've spent the last, since our last meeting in late November, we've spent these weeks trying to find members for the new Friends of Roberts Field board. As I mentioned last meeting, we're currently a 501c4 nonprofit group, but the C4 doesn't provide any sort of tax donation benefit, so we're going to reorganize as a C3. We were successful in finding a treasurer who was actually the branch manager of the Enterprise Bank on Littleton Road, which is outstanding. And we'll be able to have that branch serve as the collection point for any funds that we raise. So they'll be able to, they're going to help us to set up some accounting processes and to sort of keep our books in line. And to have the donations go directly there and not have to have any volunteers mess with the funds is really a big thing. We're looking for.
Sorry, I'd like to note that the sooner we get something set up, it would be great. I meant to mention last day to play, I had at least one person ask who to make a check out to. And I said, we will email out to anyone who gives us the email. I just want to say this before I forget. I told everyone that if you have any interest in that anyone who gives us their email address, as soon as we have that settled, we will email the information out about how to donate.
Yes, absolutely.
To
We'll make it very
everyone who
public.
we have a contact.
And so with that in mind, I'm working on scheduling a meeting now. We have enough people to have either a 5 or 7 board of directors for the Friends of Roberts Field. I'm fine with 5 or 7. It just depends on what the participation would be. And we'd welcome more if more people want to get involved. I'm trying to schedule that meeting next week. I'll make that it'll be a public meeting. I'm not sure the location yet. I'm still working on trying to find a location for it. But we will have a chair, a vice chair, a treasurer, and a clerk. And I mentioned that the Enterprise Bank has provided Tony Khalil, who will be our treasurer, which is a great thing. And we'll probably hold it at either the police headquarters, training room, or somewhere else. I need to find somewhere else. We can't hold it here at town offices because it's a nonprofit group and they don't allow that to happen after hours. I just learned that today. So,
North Town Hall similarly, or
I don't know.
You can rent that, so you can be a nonprofit and use it. It's
is there
like
anything,
$20 an hour. Or
Which would
something.
work. I can
is
make
there
that
anything
happen.
at the library?
the library doesn't have any availabilities for that Wednesday that we're talking about. I'm trying to kind of work some schedules to make it work. That's a great idea, yeah, I didn't think about
You know,
that.
if anybody has their local church.
I was thinking maybe real estate companies as well might have a conference room that we could use for a couple hours just to knock it out, but I'm just gonna do that tomorrow, so, to try to finalize the location, so once we have the location set, I'll make a public announcement about when it's gonna be, and I encourage, what we're gonna do is we'll have, the reorganization, we'll have bylaws, we'll have, articles of organization, and, we'll have members of, the Friends of Roberts Field, and the members of the Friends of Roberts Field will basically elect the board of directors. So we, and share information, with us and sort of help to, make sure that everything runs smoothly. So I encourage people to join the Friends of Roberts Field, not only get the information and come and do stuff, the volunteer stuff that we do, but also to actually participate in the meetings that we have scheduled, so.
And we got a number of signups for that at the, that's it.
I didn't, that's good to hear.
Yes, sorry, I will be transferring to this evening.
So any questions about the Friends of Roberts Field reorganization?
This isn't exactly about this, but it's a different question that came up when I was looking into the gift breaks. There have been funds raised in a reiteration of this that came before us.
Right, about $12,000 worth.
Where are these
access to it?
funds and what account are they in?
So my understanding is that those funds were put into a town account, that was earmarked specifically for, the Roberts Field master plan, not necessarily just the playground. But that's a good question. We should find out, how those funds are gonna be used, and I think that we should make some sort of a recommendation as to how they should be used.
And we should
I guess I
see,
didn't understand either why if they were willing to take that money, why they're unwilling to take
Yeah.
any more money.
I think it has to do more with, the amount of transactions that could happen with our fundraising, because, I mean, we have a pretty, aggressive ideas, pretty aggressive ideas for corporate fundraising and then the gift bricks and stuff, and I think the amount of transactions that we could generate through that was a little unnerving for them to be able
Okay.
to keep track of.
Yeah, I just wondered, like, okay,
Yeah,
there's
me
already
too.
an account set up, why is it that this can't be used?
Right.
You know, and why if they took money before, are they saying we won't take money now?
yeah, and do we have access to that funds at all for seeding? Cause like fundraising events, like it will take some money to do some of the fundraising things that we might wanna set up, right? We might need some money for like renting a space to do a fundraising thing. Unless we just want to do it out of the goodness of our collective hearts. If there's already some fundraising money, I would assume that could go towards seeding. If we held a fundraiser, you would need some, you know what I'm saying?
So I talked to the town manager, in an email sort of about that, and, we need to kind of think of it, we need to have a separation between the Friends group and our committee, because the committee can't get involved in fundraising per se.
This committee.
Yes,
not
the
get
town
involved.
can't, like, well, specifically I asked him if we could, create some sort of a media campaign where, like, if we did, a yard sign campaign,
Yeah.
like we were talking about, where we were trying to encourage people to not only volunteer, but to potentially to donate as well.
Yeah.
The town can't do that,
So the previous committee who fundraised, how did that work then?
I think at the end of the day, that ended up being, done sort of as a private thing, not necessarily as, I mean, I think it was sort of the members participated in the fundraising, but it wasn't really necessarily part of the committee activities, if that,
Okay.
technically.
Okay.
But I was
the
just
town
trying to
owns it.
understand.
It's all very convoluted seeming.
It is, I mean, because it's all the same people doing the same stuff, and
Right.
it's all kind of, but I
Yeah.
think we just moving forward have to kind of keep things, in our own mind at least, and then in paper, kind of keep things separate. So our committee can't do any fundraising,
We could just,
but
We
when
can
we're in
ask
our
the
Friends of Roberts Field hat, we
how
can,
to do it
you
for
know,
us.
go
right, I
and-
mean, we did get up during town meeting and say we'd make fundraising a priority, and everyone who, had a problem with us coming to that meeting in the first place said, why didn't you do fundraising before you came to our thing to ask us to vote for this? So, now I'm very confused, but okay. So we'll just say Friends can fundraise, advisory board cannot.
Advisory board, I think our charge is gonna be to generate volunteers.
So we
For
can
the
get
community
people to
build.
volunteer, we just can't get people to give money. We can get people to give hours, but not money.
Right.
Is that where the?
So I have, we'll have to have a Roberts Field Advisory Committee hat where we ask for volunteers, and then we'll have to have a Friends of Roberts Field hat where we ask for money.
Right. I'm officially no longer talking as a member of the committee, and I'm talking as a member of the board.
I mean, it just kind of is what it is, but we'll find a way to make it work.
Okay.
And, I think mainly it's gonna be when we craft a letter asking for corporate sponsors, that the letter has to come from the Friends of Roberts Field, and it can't come from the Roberts Field Advisory Committee. But that if we get the town to spend money for awareness of the community build and generating volunteers, that can come from the advisory committee.
So the gift bricks,
Mm-hmm.
can we here gift
That's
brick,
gonna then
or
have
can
to be
we
from
only
Roberts Field.
gift brick through
Friends of Roberts Field.
Mhm.
Okay.
We can talk about it here, there's nothing wrong with talking about it here, I don't think, but primarily it's gonna be an endeavor of the Friends of Roberts Field.
Which brings me to gift bricks.
Which is a great,
It's like we're all, it's a well laid out meeting, we all end up
Like
I had
all
one-
of this agenda.
flowing well.
just a couple of quick things I just wanted to kind of reiterate. Grant writing, Adele's gonna lead that, right? She's not here tonight, but she committed last meeting to lead that, and that's gonna probably start around the same time that the corporate and private sponsorships are gonna start. And I had a conversation with Marcus. I didn't realize that he was a professional sales
Yes.
guy when we first had that split. So he's gonna actually lead the corporate and private sponsorships, and I'll support him any way that I can. We had a brief discussion about identifying the process and sort of what needs to happen there. But again, that's gonna happen after the design is done. You had mentioned some of the dining out type one-off
Yeah,
things.
I got a thing at Sal's the other night.
Right, I was gonna
I
say,
was like,
when I've gone into Chipotle, when I've gone into Muya's, I think Applebee's does it, there's a whole host of, chain related places that all want to host a night of your fundraising, whatever. And I was just gonna say about companies and stuff, I know at least one person who showed up for last day to play said that he gets 4 hours of volunteer time through his company, and he wanted to, maybe see how to donate to that. And I said, well, do you know if your company does volunteer days? And he said, yes. So I'll have to give that company name to Marcus, but I think that there were probably people who showed up.
And I think with the corporate and private sponsorship pitch that we'll have, it'll be both a financial pitch as well as an in-kind pitch as well as a volunteer pitch.
Because I believe I've heard, and maybe I shouldn't say this, I believe that I've heard that Kronos and Target are both places that do volunteer. They donate employees for a day of volunteer work.
Right. And Kronos definitely does. So they've actually worked there before. So that'll be part of it. And I think the main person that we'll probably be talking to will be the HR person. So I think that'll be a person that'll be close to the, if there's a company that does that, a group that does that, they'll probably know who to kind of get that moving. With the dining out stuff, is that something that you would be interested in leading?
Yeah, sure. I've already picked up flyers from a couple different companies.
Okay. Is that something that you'd want to kind of get a list of and then maybe generate a schedule of things, and then I can help support that with promotion?
Yeah, I was gonna say I wasn't sure whether or not we needed to wait until we were a 501c3 before that. I don't know whether the
Question that I
companies
had.
are.
That's
Whether-
a long way out, or that could be 6 months to a year.
I don't think it's actually that long based on some accountants that I talked to.
Really?
I really don't think
I
it's
hope
gonna be
you're
that
right.
long.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it could in theory, but I don't think it generally is, and I don't think it's
Really?
complicated enough. Cause I have a couple friends who are accountants and briefly almost convinced me to create my own 501c3, and then I realized that that's just not a good choice. But I think that it's quite possible if companies like these eateries are doing this, they're probably doing it expecting there to be some tax thing. I really have no idea. So I will contact them.
They are in fact looking for that, in order for them to get you a check, you need to be a 501c3, and the check will go out 2 to 4 weeks after.
Okay. So you have experience with this?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm fundraising at Road Bush Community Center.
Oh, okay,
wow.
so we'll be talking to you more about fundraising,
Is there anything that we've talked about so far from fundraising that you think you might want to participate or even potentially lead?
Sure, I could certainly, work on any of these things, it's, near and dear to my heart.
Great.
awesome. She
And
said that you
Chipotle
do that.
does have the best percentage, they're 50%, so.
Who does?
So,
Chipotle.
Oh.
so we could go ahead and start collecting the list,
Yes.
right? And then in expectation of
I have
the,
a mental list, but I won't write it down.
Okay.
And sorry, did you say you do that professionally? Or?
Yes, I'm at Road Bush Community Center, I'm the Director of Community Outreach, Continuing Education, and Fundraising.
So, speaking of finding people who have skills, welcome.
do you have any experience with organizing nonprofits?
We are a nonprofit, I do not put us into that status.
Okay.
I do not, do
That's just my second question to ask.
that. Yes.
Perfect. Well, can you guys connect and maybe?
Yes.
Okay,
We'll
excellent.
chat.
Carved bricks.
Okay.
So I
That's
will
pretty
skip
simple.
ahead to,
That's what we said. Yes, so we talked about this last time, what I did. I basically just looked at 3 companies, I went in with criteria for them, right? Like they have to have free shipping, they need to be easy to work with, they have to provide a quality product, So I just kind of ranked them all and go figure the one that Bill had already put in there, that's the one in my book, that's who I would recommend we go with the proven track record. Some of the companies, one was just very slow to get back to me. There is the question of the 501c3 and C4, and that I am waiting on because they can't draw up a contract either. I needed to provide them with information I didn't have even for a mock contract. So it sounds like I need to join the board of Friends of Robertsfield
okay.
if I'm going to do the brick thing.
Yep.
I can't do the brick thing unless I do that. But it's going to be very easy. They essentially create a website. I kind of talked with them a little bit too about, all right, I want to tie them in. So I recommend there's different kinds. You can get bricks that are etched and then painted or sandblasted or epoxied, all different things. I like the laser blasted ones myself. It's a one-step process. I just measured the sizes that were already there. What is it, the 4x8 and 8x8, so we would just keep the same sizes. That way, if somebody wanted to give bigger, the bigger brick costs more, but they have double the square footage, especially companies might be more inclined to do that. And then I just say, let's go with the red that's there. I don't think we need to try to reinvent the wheel here. And there's just so many options and tiles,
I think there's benefit to making it
Yeah.
look exactly like the others, right? As much as we can.
So, and this is just a product that it would be very easy to wear, not every brick, if we do lay this pathway we're talking about, not every brick is most likely going to be engraved. There's going to be other bricks.
Yes.
And so this is just a super standard brick that's easy for us to match from anywhere or, match close enough. And I had asked Steve a little bit about it. It sounded like he didn't want to commit DPW to doing the install. While he likes the idea of the path from the upper lot, I think he shares that vision. It sounds like they're not going to commit to doing the install or leading it as part of the community build, or even saying that that's exactly where the bricks are going right now. We just aren't there yet, it sounds like, in the process. I think they want these RFPs. They want to see, what it is, but it sounds like he thinks we should definitely go forward. We need to start this. There's going to be a use for them. He will ensure that. And he had suggested too, in our soliciting of people, like you had said, Weston Nurseries, absolutely, if we can find a company that can install them for us, and that is their in-kind donation, or lead a team of volunteers to install it. It might be that they're not installed until after the playground opens too, depending on timeline, and we just unfortunately need to be aware of that, because you wouldn't install a pathway and then drive machinery over it to go build a playground. So just kind of thinking
about that. But yeah, I just think we keep it simple. We go 4x8, 8x8. The pricing, the actual cost is here. So all we have to do is essentially decide what to mark them up as. Anything, any markup then becomes our profit. I had suggested maybe 50 for the small one and $100 for the large one, and that gives us that profit. We can certainly do any number we want. I was trying to think of a number that would, you know, be beneficial for us in terms of fundraising, worth our time, but also be a number that a lot of people would be comfortable with. I don't want to price us out of the market. You know, we're targeting families. They don't have disposable income. I mean, they do, but it's limited. So I would like something that they don't feel like, geez, I can't do that. I mean, I paid $75, I think, for my steak at Castle in the Trees. So I was kind of.
My question.
Just how much the steaks were.
Well, yeah, what Castle and the Trees did.
Well, so they had fence steaks. I say there's fence steaks there, and we're not going with fencing because we don't know what fencing is going to be. You know, this also ties into what's
Still, you get a
existing.
sense of the kind of money people would.
Yeah.
You said $75.
That's what I paid. I can certainly ask them what the markup for them on that was too, but I think in the end it doesn't truly matter. It doesn't change what the person is. Mhm.
I have a question, is shipping included in that?
Yes, shipping is free.
For the carved bricks, not for the
I would assume
uncarved,
the
right?
local bricks should.
Right,
buy
the
local.
local bricks, for the carved ones, yes, we can buy the blank bricks elsewhere, probably much, much cheaper. Now, the shipping is free, there will be kind of in the future. It comes, they're on pallets, on a truck, you have to have a forklift to get the pallets off. So if they're not going straight to the playground, we're gonna have to store them, get them off with a forklift, store them, then get them back to the playground.
Hopefully the DPW.
Yes.
That's a question too. Do the breeder store the bricks that the car?
I haven't asked that of him yet,
Yeah,
but that's on my to-do list.
certainly expect that, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's gonna depend on how many we end up getting too, you know, it's hard for me to conceptualize a pallet of something. I mean, I understand, I see the empty ones on people's driveways, but,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Numbers aren't my thing.
What do you think our goal is? Is our goal to fund the pathway, or is our goal to fund the pathway and pay off some of the 450?
Well, I think it's both. Now, I wasn't at the meeting where everybody apparently got all the flack for, you know, you guys need to fundraise, you should have come. You know, I wasn't present for that, just the rally beforehand. But if that is the case, I really hope the 501c3 thing happens and happens really quickly, but I feel like we need to also kind of like, right, you plan for the worst, that's just how life is, and then nothing bothers you. If that doesn't happen, then what if this becomes like the only source of fundraising that we essentially did? You know, so that was kind of my thought.
So first case would be to pay off the cost of the path,
Right.
and then whatever extra we make, we'd want to either pay off some of the 450 or potentially add something more special to the, if we have something that we haven't budgeted for.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll.
That's how I envision it, but obviously that's
Yeah, I
one
assumed we
person's
were
vision.
just putting any fundraising funds into the 450, but I guess I could assume somehow that the pathway was part of the playground, and I guess it's not.
It's not, yeah, it's not part of the playground. Now, again, like Steve said, if the pathway doesn't come to fruition, we had talked about it, I know we said we didn't ideally want Dunkin' Donuts staring at us from a meditation labyrinth, but, you know, that's one possible option, or maybe, I don't know anything about playground design, but if there's bricks around the edges by the fence or something, or paths,
I think if we're not.
there might be a way to incorporate it more, but that's gonna be with the designer.
I agree with that, particularly that last statement. If we don't have a plan immediately to get a brick pathway, like, I hope we can find a way to get a brick pathway
And I
done
think
as part
that,
of the playground.
I think
but if-
Steve would like that too.
But if we can't, I think one of the cool things about, well, in the Castle in the Trees is you feel like you're surrounded by, you know, the names of, like, while you're playing, you can see, like, that's one reason that I was voting for, and I know we don't know what type of fencing we're doing, so we decided to do bricks instead of, but I do like the one, when you are playing in the playground, you do happen to glance at the corner of your eye, and you do feel like you can feel the community by seeing all of the names. So if we don't have a pathway, I think, you know, some sort of brick around, I don't know, some way to make sure that we get them incorporated into the playground if we don't have an immediate
There's
plan
definitely-
for a-
There's definitely a way to
Pathway.
do it. How that happens is,
There must be some numbers about what kind of profit we get out of a pathway. I mean, there's obviously costs for preparing the ground, the stone dust, whatnot, and then the bricks, right? And that's substantial. But at the end of that, hopefully you've got more money from the donations of the bricks and then all that costs. Have you come across typical numbers for that yet? I'm sure there's some.
She has the dog park people.
yeah, that's on my list of people to hit up. I haven't yet. I was gonna just, you know, ask a friend who's a landscaper, you know, like, could you give me a square footage thing, and then I can kind of estimate, but this is not my forte. Like, I can super publicize this and get it set up, but those types of, like, those types of conceptualizing and not my forte. I can just be honest about.
So what if we take some measurements, just have a general idea of the distance from the upper parking lot to the existing pathway, right? And we can get an estimate for
Yeah.
what the cost would be. That would be the same width and sort of style as the stuff that's there in place. And then let's say that costs, I don't know, $10,000 or whatever the amount is. Then we know that we have to, and if we're going to sell them at $50 and $100 a piece, we know that we have to sell at least X number to pay for that part of it. And then wherever the design nets out on the inside, if the design comes back with an internal brick pathway through that kind of connects stuff but doesn't have any equipment where kids can fall on it, we can kind of do the same thing there and see how much of that we could pay for with.
Yeah, I just don't
fundraising.
want to get tied and super committed. Like, I do think we should measure, and those are good numbers to have. But I don't want it to be like, oh, it's going to cost $12,000, so we need to make the bricks X amount. Because they will be used no matter what. It's okay if we scale down the size of the project, like, because nobody bought enough bricks, and so that's not a go. So what can we do with these bricks that's within the budget so that we still do the profit? That's kind of how I'm seeing it. I don't want to, that is my number one priority, get enough and do that. But if it doesn't happen, and I don't want to outprice the brick, because I think, again, just talking to my friend that's a landscaper in a quick, you know, text message, like, I think his word was pricey.
Oh, the 1,500 is too pricey? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
like, it would be a lot to do that. And so that would really be where we'd want to get somebody to, you know, donate their time and
or their skills.
For the installation?
for
or-
the installation,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and like the extra brick.
Okay.
So that, and again, I don't know what that means, and so I need to get him more information still too. But I think we should start this knowing that we hope to pull off that pathway. Like,
That's our first priority.
that is our first priority.
Right.
But if it doesn't happen, no problem. Or if we get enough bricks but it becomes cost prohibitive, no problem. There are other ways to use them in a cost-effective manner.
We should
Okay.
see if we can contact the previous, or I don't know if you did, the previous people who did the current pathway, see how that got installed.
I haven't had any success
Yeah, I
in
haven't
finding
had.
anybody.
I
was gonna
ask
say-
my parents.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
I was
Yeah, I'm like,
considering
I've
thinking
lived
she had a
here
contact.
not very long,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, so they will have some information for me. I'm quite certain that there was no website when they did the original brick path.
Yeah.
And they walked around with clipboards selling
Mhm.
bricks. And I want to say that I wanted to say they were maybe 50 and 100,
Oh,
Okay.
which
I love that we have
That
someone
many
who has a
years ago.
voice of
Yeah.
this is awesome.
it was quite a bit more money. But as a mother of 4 children, $50 or $100 I could do.
you feel good about that
So
number?
I feel good about
I
it.
think
I
that's
kind of
good about
asked
that
a
number,
couple
too.
of friends informally, because obviously I do want to make a profit, but I don't want to outprice. It's more for me about quantity of people that participate
Yeah.
versus,
Community, right.
you
Right.
know, um,
You don't wanna
dollars.
outprice the bricks, like you said.
Yeah.
Question,
People love it.
minimum order,
100, which,
100 bricks.
100. That's, I don't see that being a
No, I
problem.
don't think so either.
Yeah. So, yeah.
People love their bricks.
They do. You know, some of the other companies had like kitschy little get your tiny memento brick to match it, and
Right,
We're
yeah,
just
I know
not
that's
gonna
what the
do-
dog park did. 'cause
Yeah,
they
and
got
that's
a little extra.
good for them. But I think we just need to keep it simple. You can go to this website, you buy a brick. We link the PayPal. The money gets linked directly. We have to use PayPal to a bank account, and that's where I need more information because it's going to have to go to Friends of Roberts Field. And there was some questions. I said, well, right now we're a 501c4. Is that okay with, you know, the anticipation that it's switching? And so they're kind of like, what's your timeline on switching? And making sure they understand what that would mean for them too. If it switched while the campaign was
Right.
happening, that could be, so they're looking into that.
Okay.
What is the timeline on that?
We don't know how long it's gonna take. I think, I mean, I don't wanna speak for you, but I think that it takes time. The government has to decide on, you apply and then it takes time, so I don't know that we have.
Yeah.
So we'll have our reorg meeting hopefully next Wednesday. And then I think worst case, it's 6 to 8 weeks for the 501c3. That's kind of the numbers that I had heard.
Yeah, I've lost track of what the numbers were. I think the original numbers that I think you'd mentioned seemed, when I sent them to the accountant I was talking to, they said, oh no, it's nowhere near that long. But I don't have specifics.
But hopefully we can turn the key pretty quickly with after the meeting. We just need the board, and I just need a board to say, yeah, these bylaws look great and these articles look right on or don't or whatever, so we can move forward.
I mean, my thought with this is if we could get it rolling, get them working on the website as they decide, you know, it can be that, okay, we've signed this contract, we are going to go with you. Can we start off as a 501c4 and then switch? If they say that we have to wait, then we have to wait. But if they can at least start building this website, I'll foot the $25, or we can take it out of our cupcake money that we got. Like,
Yes, I think we did about $60
you know.
from cupcakes and snacks on Saturday.
All right,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't be able to move forward with it, because I mean, I think the tax donation benefit is really for the person who's buying the brick, not necessarily the vendor, right?
Right, and I'm assuming that they would, well, unless they have to.
but
send
it's
you
an
information.
accounting issue for them, I think,
Okay.
too,
So,
because
but they, I'm
of-
sure they could have a way to close down at a particular time. Like we could say, close down the website for X amount of time and all things going forward. Like,
Yeah,
there's
and that's-
gotta be a way.
well,
that
and
we
that's
can-
what they're working on. So she said, you know, this is a little, that situation I'm
Okay.
not personally familiar with, but I'm going to get this to the people who are and get you answers on that.
So I will get you involved in the scheduling process for the meeting, like I said.
For the 4th,
Yeah.
that's what I like to call
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Fourth.
Um,
Perfect.
Probably next Wednesday, probably 6:30, and probably, I don't know where it's gonna be held,
All right.
we'll see.
Yeah.
I can take the measurements, the rough measurements for
That would be really
to locate from the top of the top parking lot to the existing thing.
Mhm.
I can reach out to Weston Nurseries to see if they can give us some people that we can maybe able to contact to see if they'd be interested in at least giving us an estimate of what they think the cost would be for just the materials, right?
Mhm.
And then if they'd be interested in donating that as an in-kind donation.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that I can do to help move
I
that?
also want to find
Well,
out
I
what
would
the
need-
cost for labor would be if they installed it.
Okay.
Just,
That's
yeah,
gonna be high, but at least it gives you something
an
to
upper
work
limit.
with.
Right, yeah, pricey was what my friend said.
Yes.
So.
We get an upper
You
limit
high,
on the
him
pricing.
pricey, I'm not sure what that means.
Come up with is probably bricks per linear foot or linear 10 feet or something like that on the walkway, so we know that if we get 500 bricks donated, we know what that means in terms of reaching down to the.
Do we know what the current pathway width is, and are we matching it?
I think we need to match it. I think it needs to look, in my mind, it needs to be exactly the same.
I would like that to be my other question is, do we need it to be wider than it currently is for any current standards? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We can ask.
And
Bet
again,
Adele
we
would
keep it
know.
exactly the way it is. it's gonna all be pulled out anyway, so we're gonna be laying in only.
No, the other bricks I think are gonna stay where they are. I don't think we're gonna touch
I don't
those.
think,
We're not gonna-
no,
We're not gonna.
I don't think so,
No.
because those are outside the playground footprint and they.
Ideally, the design's gonna incorporate them the way they are.
I can clarify with Steve, because I do need to send him an email about this
They're
to
probably
kind of
gonna
follow up.
need to be protected. We've got construction going on,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
you know, whether they put 12 inches of sand or wood chips or something over the top of them so they can drive over them without crushing them.
Bricks are
Yeah.
crushable.
You put enough weight on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing, this is not my.
I mean, worst case, we just block them off so you can't get, you know what I mean? Like there's a
Mhm.
netting or something to keep the
It's
things.
not like
from-
they're gonna go through the entryway as it is without taking out the fence anyway, with construction.
Right.
done. So,
Alright, well, I can certainly make that part of my email and kind of questions to him and tell him, sorry, you're getting emails from everybody, I'll be the brick lady. It's no problem. So yeah, I kind of just put up there, but I chose the font essentially, the brick color, keeping with what is
Yeah.
there. And, you know, not doing fancy symbols and things, it's just, you know,
yeah,
there's your
and
text.
the uniformity of the previous,
Mhm.
try to keep it, yeah.
Yeah, this black may show up a bit darker because it's fresh and
Oh,
new.
yeah, I mean, I think
Um,
that will, I think that's not a bad thing, actually, right? I think it will be good to have it look as similar as we can, but having an indication of the new stuff versus the old stuff, and like, I think
Mhm.
that's,
Okay.
I'm sure our laser cutting new ones
Yeah.
will look fresher than the ones that have been run
Well,
over.
Well,
the
bricks
years.
technology has
Roads,
changed over the
and
past
everything
30
like
years
that,
too.
so There's some
Mhm.
cleanup, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
So
so,
I would like to get this started, but the other thing is needing the bank account to tie it to. So I can't sign any contract
Right.
committing, because they need a representative from your nonprofit to sign the contract
Right.
until I'm
So after.
on
these ones,
said
right.
nonprofit thing, but.
So after we have our board, after we have our bylaws, we can open our bank account and
Mhm.
then, we can get that stuff.
Okay, so I mean,
That's the
it's
plan.
kind of on hold until then, with the exception of them finding out the answers to my question about the paperwork process of 501c4 to C3
Right.
while in process.
Well, and once we take the measurements, we'll have an idea of how many bricks we actually have to work with. So, you know, I have this anticipation in my mind that we're gonna have this overwhelming,
I hope so.
demand for bricks. We'll know. I mean, if it's gonna be 5,000 bricks, then, you know.
We're gonna have more bricks than we can lay down, or are you talking about the other way around?
I have no idea how
always
it's
find
We're gonna
going to
need more
go,
bricks.
Optimistically have more bricks than we have space for.
so that we don't have
You've
to
got
buy
plenty
plain
of
I was
bricks.
gonna say, I don't see that being a problem.
I'm just being
Question,
optimistic.
could they send you a sample brick?
Absolutely, they will,
Now,
yeah.
that way you can examine it, you can look on and say, hey, it's gonna be match, or it's gonna be contrast, or.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty close, but I can't get a sample till I do the contract too.
And my understanding is
So
that
I'm a
they-
little hamstrung there, but,
My understanding
Yeah.
is that they use sort of basic, standard bricks
Yes.
like, that everybody kind of uses, but I'm.
I sent them a
But some bricks
picture.
are made out of clay.
Yep.
And now they're going to bricks that are going
Composites.
colored concrete.
Yeah.
yeah,
And there's a
I'm going
difference in
with the
texture and.
proposed clay brick that's been laser engraved over
Okay.
the
So old
concrete.
school
Yeah,
clay brick.
My,
it could be the laser better on clay than it does.
Exactly, that's the whole thing, then you don't have to engrave and paint black or put epoxy that's black, the laser leaves it black, so they're little.
my goal would be to get a professional brick guy, gal, to come out and, say, yeah, that's a clay, you know, what is it, the red
Yeah,
provincial brick, so, you know what I mean? Like, so we have a professional say, this is what it is, this is what you need to get to
yeah.
match.
I sent them a picture,
Mhm.
was the other thing too, I just took
Oh,
a couple different pictures in different lights and said, you know, I'm looking at your colors, and they agree it's probably this regimental red is gonna fit best, you know, they said it's hard to tell without being there in person, but
I think this
they
is great.
feel very confident.
I think this is great. I think
So-
people are gonna be really excited about this. I think we're gonna have.
Yeah, I was really hoping to get it going before Christmas, so that one
Yeah.
could kind of publicize it with last minute gift ideas.
Yeah.
But,
It's gonna be hard with the bank account situation.
It is.
We'll shoot for it. Let's try and make
Yes.
that happen.
yeah,
That's
if
our
it
goal.
doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and yeah, people might say that's great, but I will still after Christmas or after I get my
Maybe we
tax
go
refund back.
Wednesday night, Thursday, they can open it.
Do you know if, I know they don't, I know that there's some companies send small bricks and we don't wanna do that, but do they, like if somebody buys it, will they have just like an invoice, kind of a receipt?
Yeah, they'll be able to see on the screen through the website exactly what their brick looks like. You know, so as they type in letters, they kind of appear
Right.
on the brick
Just
and
so
they'll
cool.
see that. And then they get an emailed receipt.
Okay,
And so if we were a 501c3, then it would say, you know, you've donated to this is a tax deductible thing, so it's easy for them to just save in their email and use for tax season.
okay.
What would be really nice is if we could find, a company that would give us some volunteer labor to help to lay the back.
Oh, absolutely.
As
Definitely.
opposed to, you know,
It's
To
not
do it.
that hard.
I mean, the goal is to find a company that will do it as an in-kind donation, just.
Yeah, because I think we'd
Yeah.
like someone who does it so that it's well put together for a long
Yeah, because
time.
whoever put this one down in place, I mean, this one is in
Yeah.
great shape. It's been just abused over the years and
It
neglected.
might have been one of my grandparents' friends who is still alive.
Get
And he was a professional bricklayer. He's too old to be doing it now. Although I'm sure he would love to stand over people and instruct.
Well,
That's always, you
we
know,
can't find anyone to do it.
that-
exactly.
you know,
Well, it'd be cool to have him come out and be able
Yeah.
to, you know, film him and sort of talk to him about his
Yeah,
experience.
So I'll
with
find
the
out
town.
if he's the one that did it. And if he didn't do it, I'll find out.
That's awesome. Thank you so
That'd
much.
be great, yeah.
I'm so glad you came to that.
Yeah, I just really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments on the gift bricks for now? We all kind of have our to-dos on this, so.
Yeah. So everybody feels good with the prices?
Yeah.
Okay, understanding that,
so
you
going
know,
to 1,500.
I kind of felt like they were easy numbers, you know.
I mean, especially if they were sold for 1,500 20 years ago, I think 1,500 now.
My only possible thought was you could do 50 and 150 because I know it's double the size, but if you're thinking companies would do the bigger size one, they'd be more inclined to do. They'd probably be more inclined to do 150 than a family would. But that was my only thought is if we're looking for more.
If
Bang,
you look
I don't
back
know.
at the bricks that are there, it wasn't companies.
Yeah,
that
that's
did
one
the
thing I
ones, it was
noticed too.
families.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping not to have 12 Dunkin' Donuts
Yeah, I
fence
really. I
posts.
mean, I want
Ag-
donations,
yes.
but I'd rather less signage. So.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's my hope too.
Okay, any other?
Not on the first.
The last thing I just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed on is kind of where we are with our promotional efforts. And I think my perspective has been that I'm trying to gather as many names and email addresses as we can and trying to start gathering volunteers. So we've got an email list now of 288 people.
And I'm
which-
sorry you don't have the updated numbers because I'm guessing that number is substantially
well, that's
higher
great.
than
I
what
love adding to it, so that's awesome. So, in my mind, I'm thinking that, you know, come Community Build Week, I think we need like roughly 100 to 150 people per day, and it would be 5 days, so I don't know, somewhere between 750 and 1,000 volunteers, maybe.
for people willing to work multiple days.
Right. So, I mean, let's say, just for rough numbers, just 1,000 people, right? The emails that I've been sending out have gotten about 45% of the people that get the emails actually open the emails, and about 15% actually click on something. So the conversion rate from this 288 to actual volunteers, participants, is 10 to 15% probably, right? So we've got to really work hard to get this 288 up to the thousands, right? So just to
But
keep
it's
in your mind.
possible every email is going to a family who there's going to be more than one adult who's going to be dragged.
Absolutely. And then there's companies that are going to provide, 15, 20 people, and there's going to be all that. But just as we move forward, that's kind of where my head is, at least, that, we're trying to get this volume up, right,
In
to
the
get these people.
schools, if there's any way we can get out to parents in the schools, that's going to be our best option for getting people who have a vested interest.
So as of today, before I get to the other stuff, this is where we are. So 288 emails, 3 volunteer signups, and 5 members of the Friends of Roberts Field. Our Facebook group is up to about 334 people now, and it's grown a lot over the last,
Do you know what it was like
2 weeks.
before we?
I think we
So-
probably added 100, maybe 100 people, I think,
Okay,
maybe. So
great.
it's been good. The
Good,
growth has been
okay.
substantial. And the nice thing about it too is that there's been a lot more people posting stuff about the playground and stuff about
Mhm.
kids and stuff. So
Just
it's
have to keep building that momentum.
Yeah.
yeah. So as much as we can, keep encouraging people to join their friends group and to post on their friends group. And I'm still looking for an admin. So if somebody wants to, not necessarily to really necessarily do anything, but just to kind of keep I think if you're an admin, you kind of tend to kind of keep things top of mind and kind
Mhm.
of keep posting and stuff. So
On the Facebook page.
on the Facebook page, I know you're not on Facebook, but
Do you have to have a personal Facebook page to be?
probably, yeah. I think you
I
have to be
can, I can do it. I think I just toyed around with doing that.
if
I
you're
can do
interested.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to have you on there and
Yeah,
be
I'm
part
happy.
of it.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Okay. And then I mentioned that, we had a volunteer that's gonna be doing the branding, and I think that's great, and I'll share the questionnaire with you and, with you guys, and we can get that going.
Okay,
So,
great.
that's kind of where we are in terms of volunteers. Is there any other volunteer information that you guys wanna share or talk about, or questions?
I think that there's going to be a lot of people that do come out, even if they're not on that list. There's a lot of ways to get in with groups in the area.
Yeah.
Like I play on a soccer team, my whole soccer team will be there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to get to people.
Yeah. Oh, we had talked about having not a chalkboard menu, but a
Oh.
chalkboard menu sign in the center of town.
The
When you're sitting
sandwich
in
board.
traffic, sandwich board,
I'm
thank
thinking,
you.
I
I'm
know,
not,
cause like the Santa's, the muffins with Santa thing that's out there now, there's like a
because when you
radio
come
con
through at
thing.
rush hour, you're
I
there
sit out
for
there,
a
I
while.
read everything in the center while waiting for the lights to
So I don't know
change.
who we need to ask, like, I'm assuming you have to have some kind of permission from the town.
It depends on where the placement is.
Okay.
But like the hotel that's in the center, like it used to be a hotel. It's the so
I was
there's
gonna say there's a
I know.
hotel in the
there
center,
used to be there's the island, and then there's the big building off to the right.
the one that
right?
has like
Where
the,
they have the band that's singing at the prelude.
you're talking about the one that's
Where the-
right up
where
from,
the tree is up during the lighting that talks to you.
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
so if
Apparently I don't
the
know.
tree's here,
Okay.
the island's here, and then there's a big giant apartment building.
the one
now.
with the hill that goes down, the
Yes.
storefront on the bottom level.
All
Okay.
privately owned and owned by, I believe, Representative Golden's group. So that's somebody we could approach to putting a large sign. And we've got a lot
That's
of
where the radiothon thing is on that corner.
yeah. So there's we don't if the island itself is town property, and they have very strict standards on what can be posted there.
Okay, they currently have the muffins with Santa, so I can't imagine that, like,
Particularly ones for our 501c3.
right,
It will be, you just need to approve
Right.
to place it there, and that's, something that just kind of go through and they're like, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that we can come up with some kind of cool yard sign kind of campaign thing that's a mix of, the traditional 18 by 24 yard signs and the bigger 4 by 8 yard signs. And do kind of a mix that, maybe create some kind of a question in people's mind, something, I don't know, but I'm hoping that the volunteer can help us to kind of develop that campaign.
My last question too is on that sandwich board idea. When that playground is gone,
yeah.
I think there's gonna get more interest
Right.
too when it's
Right.
sitting there as a pit. How could we put a sign
Right.
out in front, like
Yeah, I was
something
gonna
there
say,
that
we need
says,
something
like
on the street that's-
Roberts Field is not gone, but like you need to, whatever.
Friendship Park
do
is gone for now, but with your support, it will be back in summer of
Something.
2018.
And we need you to
Join
volunteer.
us,
Yes.
and Marcus and I talked at the last day to play, and I know I brought this up before, it's not too hard to, if you're driving by, you're not gonna do this, but on some of our documentation, it's not too hard to get a QRC code, which is just you
Yep.
scan it with your phone, so just direct people to exactly,
Yep.
the website, which has all of the information, so I think using tech as much as we can but I really strongly think we need a sign right on the street in front of Roberts Field that,
Yep.
is good size and says,
something.
So with your help.
Says
we'll
something,
return.
Help
yeah.
us rebuild the park.
Yes.
Right, draws
Yeah.
interest to it,
Yeah.
and we can do
Stay
that.
tuned.
I've got the scaffolding, I've done a lot of political campaigns, so I've got the scaffolding, we can do a 4x8, which is a sizable sign.
I think that's the size.
With the help of the professional designer, I think we can kind of make it as part of this other thing too, and make it really kind of cool.
Mhm.
Great.
So we're definitely on the same page, and I think we need to do what you're talking about sooner rather than later, that just kind of sits there, right?
Yeah.
That 4x8 that could just kind of sit
Yes.
there.
Mhm.
Particularly with, as you said, with the playground going, people will come, sadly, to go with their kids to the park.
They won't.
They won't come back, and if we don't have a sign up before they come, like, they'll come and show up and the park will be gone. If we don't have a
Needs to
sign
be
up that
they can
first
see
time
from
that
their
they show up,
car. Yeah.
they're not, that we'll have lost
And then they'll
someone.
post on Facebook being like, I can't believe they did that.
Exactly, no one let me know.
That's the
There's
first
no
question. The
information."
second is, what about the bricks?
Yes.
But yeah, so we can do that.
Okay.
Kind of like how the signboard thing was at the last day to play, but just not so slidey. I mean,
And-
Right, I think
and
we need
visible from
one
the
large,
road.
Yes.
one
Yeah.
large visible from a driving by
Yeah.
experience.
Yep.
You know,
From a
like any
drive-by.
sort of development where you drive by, like the one on Mill Road for the big development, there's a, coming, I don't know, it's Princeton Properties or something, coming 2018 with a picture. I think we just need something.
we can do it. We can do it cost effectively. We can do it for about $50 a sign.
Okay.
So it's something that, if as long as we do it for volunteer recruitment, I think we have a good chance of having the town pay for it.
Okay, is it gonna be made out of something that will, like, can we get it, I don't know how signs are,
Corrugated plastic.
okay, so that will survive some level of winter storm
Oh
that's
yeah,
coming
these are
our.
great. I've got a sign
no
guy in
sign-
Rhode Island.
I have no
that,
sign experience whatsoever,
Sign
so.
He prints these beautiful signs. They're 4-color. They look like magazine ads. So we
Awesome.
have complete flexibility with it. I've got the scaffolding built for him to mount them to, so we're all set there. That's a low-hanging fruit for
Do
me.
we need
so.
like special permission from the DPW in making sure that it's not within plowed space and, I don't know.
Potentially, but I think the biggest thing is going to be that we want to make sure that the police are okay with the placement, so it doesn't block any views.
I don't know if we wanna put it on that,
The rise,
yeah, I
yeah,
was gonna say berm, but it's not berm, it's,
yeah,
yeah.
kind of where the sign
way-
is now, but somewhere in there, so it's visible.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the amount of copy that we end up putting on the sign, how much message is there. I mean, if it's just like some big bold letters, it just has a very engaging kind of
Yeah.
message, which I'm hoping that the.
And I think that's
can help us with.
exactly, I don't think we want much data on that, I think we can put a smaller data full sign in the park area,
Right,
so if someone's walking, they're gonna stop and read it, maybe right outside where the fencing is, so that when they take down, that it's still there. But I definitely think for the one that's visible from the street, you just need something that has like, I would say 20 words is the max, or something much smaller than that.
Where's that playground question in just a few sentences to describe it? I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, basically something
Like
short,
parking lot?
pithy.
something engaging.
Friendship Park isn't gone forever with your help. Join us.
Yeah, we'll figure it
2018
out.
summer
We're
or
on the
something.
same page. So
Actually,
Just
with English.
Just brainstorming for a quick second, how viable would it be to do a few little advertising blips, video blips, and having the CTM put them up? Would that
So that'll be part of it, yeah. So that'll definitely be part of the video part.
yeah.
Thank you so
okay.
much for coming.
I'll contact you, thank you.
Take care.
So everything that we've done, throughout this process, either for last day to play or whatever, those are all going to be things that we're going to do. Video's going to be a big part of that. My concern is that the stuff that we've done so far has given us 288 email names. So that's why I reached out to the town manager to see what the town would pay for in terms of paid stuff, because I think we're going to have to do some paid stuff. And I think what I'd like to do
And
is.
that's why I was wondering about that previously engaged money.
Yeah, I don't know. Part of me is like, I'd hate to spend that money on advertising.
If
But
we
I-
have another option, by all means.
Right.
If we don't have another option, I think that money, that fundraising raised money towards fundraising will give dividends.
Yeah, and part of me is just like, but these people gave money to build the playground, so I think if the town would pay for it, I think that would be the best option.
Again, if there's some other
Yeah,
way,
I
other than,
agree.
I'm happy to pony up some money, I just don't, the reason I keep bringing up the fact that there's that other fund is we have a small group of people who we all are very devoted to helping this, and I just think we should make sure that if there's already funds that we can, I think it's a return on investment. If they gave money to give the park, you know, towards the park, if we put fundraising money into more fundraising, you just effectively stretch their dollars, not that you have put it into something that is not,
So,
you know.
Lisa, I think what you're saying is, if they took their $20 and turned it into $200.
Exactly.
They probably would.
I think they would appreciate, I mean, I think it effectively goes towards the park, it's just that it
Yeah.
maximized the money that they gave. So, I mean, it's not like I wanna blow through it, but if we need like $100 or something, I think if we can get that from, you know, I think,
So what I was hoping to do was, once we get through the branding survey exercise thing, is to work, maybe create a media plan where, you know, we list out a schedule, a calendar of, here's all the free opportunities that we'll have, the stuff that we've been doing with the videos and the emails and the Facebook and all that, but then we layer on top of that a number of paid opportunities like the yard signs and potentially a postcard or postcards.
yeah, what paid for postcards and stuff before?
What's that?
The postcards and stuff that got sent out?
The abutter mailings and stuff?
Yeah.
The town paid for those.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a history
So
there.
there is a history of stuff.
And I think if we go back to the town with, okay, here's our plan, you know, it's not just we're asking you to foot this whole bill, but there's free stuff in here too, we're trying to do a coordinated effort. I think they'll be more open to it. I kind of hit the town manager up with a $6,000 cost idea, because that's roughly what it would cost to do one mass mailer,
Okay.
100 yard signs, and there was something else in there. Oh, a couple of small little sun type ads, which we may or may not need. So I mean, the $6,000 is about right, and that's about what people spend for a political campaign. So I felt like that was a good number to base it off of.
Okay.
But I think we can go back with a plan, and I think working with the professional to generate the idea and the concept, I think it'll make it that much more powerful. You know.
A little polished and like
Absolutely, and we'll get more bang for our buck if it all works together.
Great.
All right, so that was all for the volunteer discussion. Any other questions or comments? So just to confirm, our next meeting date is going to be Wednesday, December 26th. We all agree that that's still the case?
Yes.
And then I was assuming that come December 26th, we would schedule our meeting for January. I didn't bring any dates because it's so far off.
Yeah, it's too hard to.
Yeah, it's Christmas is coming.
We
so.
have to get through all those RFPs and Christmas, so.
It's gonna be a
Yeah.
lot happening between
Yeah.
now and the new year.
Jim?
For 26, I've got it on Tuesday.
You're right, that is a Tuesday. That's a typo on my part. Sorry, it's not Wednesday. It's Tuesday the 26th.
Yes, you also have it farther down your list as Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, see? Well, I covered my bases.
He's right 50% of the time.
Yeah, that's not bad.
On the slides, good. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
On
So-
this?
Anything?
Oh, on anything?
This is the last,
Yeah.
Okay, I don't wanna launch into a whole other conversation because I know we want to go home, but I do wanna say that I spent a good portion of time going through ADA compliance stuff about details about playgrounds and requirements, and, there's a lot of really good information out there, and I found a whole bunch of websites, and maybe I'll send them to you, and if you just wanna send them out to people, so that, I feel like sometimes when we're all talking, like we want to do these things, but I don't know that many of us have read through. I found some good pages with some good research. Things that reminded me of it were the person who noted, like, you know, nature is great and all for the adults, but, you know, there's actual research about how it's beneficial to, one of the companies that now granted a lot of these are, you know, by companies who want you to buy things, but do actually have good research, and there was some websites I found where explained how, you know, nature play is important and have inclusive design stuff, and there's just a lot of research things that I think maybe if we could get ourselves read up a little bit on it before we read the bids.
Yep.
I think it's important. I know that the DPW, given the commentary about 25 to 30% or whatever is normal, I want to make sure that given that we keep talking about this being an inclusive and accessible playground, and maybe I did not read the RFP in the right, I don't know. I did not get enough from the RFP to indicate how strongly we were focusing on that as a group. When I read the RFP, it was kind of like, we'd like to do inclusive stuff. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe park designers will feel differently when they read it, but given that every single thing we've been talking about, that this is a big deal, that we want it to be an inclusive and accessible park, I don't feel like that was emphasized enough in the RFP for it to be obvious that that is a main design goal, that it's very inclusive. Again, maybe I'm not a playground designer, I don't know how they normally read these things, maybe it's clear, but I just want to make sure that we don't go with 25 to 30% is what's normal, or 50% is what's required, or whatever. If this is supposed to be like for people of all sorts of abilities, I want to make sure that we are all read up on not just what's normal or required at all parks, but what makes it, you know, I think I'll step off my soapbox now, but I've just spent a lot of time reading it.
No,
Excellent.
Yeah, I think you're very right, and having done enough bid work, a lot of people are gonna read it and say, okay, this is the minimum I can get away with
Right.
as the town. And unless you go in and stress and jump up and down,
And that's
you only get what you ask for.
that's
Yeah,
my
if
theory,
we-
is that it's just a bullet point, and it's not like, it's
If we
not.
can't clearly state what we want, how can we expect them to do that?
Right, and,
Exactly,
and,
really that
you know,
simple.
there was indication that, you know, we have playground places that people generally tend to use in town, and there aren't any other inclusive playgrounds in town, and maybe the playground people who do the other ones in town also do inclusive stuff regularly, and we just don't have it in town, but I wanna just make sure that we have been charged with effectively, every single time we've made any public statements about this, whatever, we've made this to be a goal that we have set out, and I just don't feel, reading the RFP, that that is necessarily gonna get through to the people as a main, you know, it kind of like, I probably should.
can I suggest two things?
Yeah,
One, how would you feel about summarizing the data that you have into like a paragraph and then a link?
okay,
Like each of the things that you think are important,
okay.
and then what we can do is we can post that on the website with a link to the link for the RFP, so that if any of the playground contractors come to robertsfield.org to get information, then it'll be sort of our voice of this is what's important to us. And then a second thing, a little bit different, but is to create some sort of a one page that we can give to the contractors on December 14th that says,
Yeah,
this is a summary of, this is our expectations, this is what we've been talking about.
yeah, I
Right.
mean, cause,
Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out what I would write up. I'm better currently at doing research and talking about it than I am at actually writing up documentation, so I will try to get some, I have a ton of links I can send you and stuff, but I will try to write something.
Well, if you, I mean, I think if you had just a short
Not a writer.
summary of what's at the link and then the link, and I think if we have that collection, then we can kind of compress that into one page
I do wanna be, you
and
know,
add to it.
not careful is the right word, a lot of this is going to come from companies that build playgrounds. And so I wanna make sure that I'm not saying that we're trying to like direct to, you know, a particular company, but there's a lot of information out there. I just, you know, when they say in the RFP, it says universal design, inclusive play design, and sensory play should be utilized to the extent practicable to ensure play for all abilities. That's kind of the only, and maybe that's enough, but it just didn't, you know, It's, well, to the extent that you can, please.
Well, let's
Do it.
reinforce it in a
So-
one page. And I mean, if you want to take the hard part is sort of starting the process, crafting that initial draft, but then you can share it with all of us individually, and then we can kind of all add to it,
Okay.
if that's,
I can't commit to how much time I can give you with holidays coming up. But if you want, I'd be glad to try to work with you a little bit on that, as far as some wording. You'd have to guide me.
that'd be
Maybe we
appreciated.
Yeah,
maybe we
that would be
can
great.
have-
I mean, I
we can
know
have
if
a
we need to
discussion
get
on the
something
phone,
before the
show me some
14th.
links.
Yeah. If you give me your
And I
email
can-
address.
And I might be able, I'll give you that after the meeting. And then we could, I could have some words and Bill can look at it and he'll.
Maybe it's a packet, maybe it's just a one-page summary of, this is our expectations, right? And it says all this stuff that we think.
What I'm thinking, I haven't looked at the RFP, but what would be really nice is if we could just give a short paragraph, a few sentences back to Steve and say, would you be willing to substitute this in the RFP, for that? So-
I don't think we can't substitute the RFP, but what we can do is give additional information.
See if you can,
Is the RFP already?
the RFP is out, people are
Mhm.
responding
Yeah,
to
so
it already.
that's done, but we can
that's-
give additional, and there's that day that we can give the additional,
And
so.
this gets back to my concern about
Yeah,
wanting to have had input into what was going out in the first place.
yes.
Because I feel like we keep talking about it as, oh, we're gonna make an inclusive playground, and I just don't feel like, and maybe I'm just reading it with a, biased eye, but I just don't feel like the specifications that we've sent out to people has put enough emphasis on how much we want it to be inclusive, because we're telling people, we have people who showed up at the last day to play with kids who have different abilities, and, we're telling people we're gonna make an inclusive playground, and I would really, really like to not eat my words on
Oh,
that,
we're not,
so,
yeah, we're not gonna let that happen. It has to be, it's gonna happen, we'll make it work.
okay. And then the only other thing was, I know I had commented during the meeting and, when Steve was here on making notes about it, that I thought it would be important to indicate that we'd like to make sure that things, I don't know what requirements are exactly with playgrounds in general, but to keep in mind materials and the health effects of materials that are used, because there's discussions of, I know we're not planning on using the rubber loam.
Turf with lead in it.
Well, turf with lead in it, which isn't mentioned in here, but,
We should be getting specifications.
the rubber that's just little bits of rubber that people use instead of wood chips, there's concerns about that stuff, and there was no indication, that I saw in the RFP, and I maybe didn't read it detailedly enough about making sure that we, specified non-toxic, you hope that playground companies all do non-toxic stuff, but I think it's worth noting that
Our RFP did not call out that.
I did not see anything in it. It's possible I missed it, but I don't think it specified anything about non-toxic or environmentally friendly. And I don't know how playground companies generally do it, but I do think that it's, particularly as a nature-focused park, it would behoove us to try to make note to the people who are doing it that is of concern to those of us who are part of it, but maybe that's my subject, so.
Ideally, we'll have a number of contractors to choose from, and that top tier will have, sort of address those needs ahead of time.
I hope so. As I said, it wasn't in the, I did not see it in the RFP upon my reading of it,
But we
there
can
was a lot of documentation.
we can include that in that summary page in whatever packet I think that we provide, so, we should, definitely do that, I think.
So are you planning on going to the 14th meeting?
I don't know what
If
I'll have
you
to check
can.
with him to see,
Yeah.
I'll check with him
We'll
to see
be in
what
touch.
we can do, yeah. So,
So I'm terrified to ask this and hear the answer, but how much control do you guys have as a committee over selecting?
No.
we are making a recommendation, the town manager has said that he welcomes the recommendation, and that's the extent of it, and we'll see where it goes.
We're just like a commercial on TV,
Yeah.
just like everybody else. What that person does with the information that we give them.
I don't
All
think
we
there's,
can do is give the best information that we can and put forth the strongest case that we can.
and I think you'd be hard pressed to find another group of individuals that are more connected to the community's wants and needs for this particular playground. So I feel like we will do a good job of representing what the community wants.
I think it would behoove the town to listen to the public input that has been gathered by this committee. I mean, it's not just the people sitting here, there's been
Yeah.
extensive surveys and whatever, and in theory, it's, the town should listen to the town public.
But it's our job
But
to steer, because there's too much data now out there. That's the problem, there's too much data. We've got to steer people into those areas that are important and that are at risk.
Right.
And what you just talked about was a couple of areas that are
Right.
at risk and are important, and that's where people need to be
And I
focused.
feel like we are, just because we are people who use the park more so than probably I don't know the town manager and I don't know Steve well, but they are committed to doing work for the town because that's their job. But in terms of people who actually utilize the space, I think we are strong stakeholders, and so, you know, our voice is all we can, you know, try to emphasize to them as we think it's important, and effectively they are working for the town, which is effectively the public who has committed.
So let's focus on that one sheet, and then any information that we think that might help to sort of, you know, the results from the survey and whatever else we think that might be important to try to pass along. And I will follow up with Steve to see what we can provide, and that if that meeting is open, and if they will allow one or all of us or a number of us to show up at that meeting to respond to questions. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I would be willing to take time off of work to show up myself. I think it's kind of the crux of the whole project, right? Right, it's our one opportunity to talk to people who might be doing a bid and giving us, and all of the work and interest we've had and all of this stuff is gonna come down to the people who might put in bids, getting the correct information so that they give bids that are what we're looking for.
I've done enough bid work, and part one, you're gonna go in, and there's gonna be a lot of those people that say, okay, government, low bid.
Right.
And the good designers or whatever really wanna hear your thoughts, because good communication is the key to success as
Happy
far
customers.
as the project is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Tied in with Boston, they did a big tree planting program. Guy came into the tree committee, on time, on budget, whatever. And then somebody in the back room says, yeah, but they all died. Then he announced that they were letting another contract out for the following year. Guess who got it? The contractor that got the first one. But as far as they were concerned, it was fine.
Right.
We got what we asked for. We just didn't ask for the right thing.
Right, and understandably, town cares about budget and schedule. Those are very important things in running any sort of business or organization. I think it's our job as this committee to be the voice of the customer in this.
No, I quite agree, but I think you should really make a good, clear statement
Right.
of what you're looking for. Because
My concern is if we don't get it out now, it won't get into
it won't
anyone's
get,
bids.
it's gone.
And then there's no point
Right.
because we're choosing between bids that don't have the data
Right.
that we were hoping to transfer.
Well, the good news is we have the opportunity to do it, right? So
Yeah.
I'm glad that that day's there and that we at least can get it out there, so.
I certainly hope so. I just,
Well, it sounds like Barry's gonna help you
Yeah, we'll get it going.
condense.
We'll get it
You
done.
You can do it. It's just like the meeting minutes. No, but I mean, I have all these notes, right? And we talk about so much, but you have to condense it into
you're
notes.
a writer, right?
No, but these, I mean, I'm not doing real writing here.
Yes.
I'm not writing for stem cell here. It's just,
Yeah.
but I'm saying.
Well, and
like,
we'll help
and
too.
you're
It's not all on
Yeah.
you. Don't feel like it's, don't feel like it, you know.
And it-
I
and it
will try
goes
to
through a draft.
shuttle data to people and then, you know, it's,
That's what I was thinking, if you just kind of did a paragraph and a link, and then we can use that as sort of the stepping stone. Plus, we can put put it on the website, so it's got double benefit, right?
And as a writer, you probably go through a draft. You put everything on paper and then you have to cut here and cut there
Yeah.
until you
You
get to
see,
what you
I'm
need.
not very good about that drafting
You
thing,
can
but we
do
can get into that.
You
some
can
other-
do it.
yeah.
I know you
No, but
can.
you have the ideas, that's all.
Yeah,
We
you
can-
have the ideas and the info.
We can work with you to write it,
Yeah.
but it's, what the information is you've been, calling out.
Alrighty, so any other comments or questions before we adjourn? No? Alright, well, thank you everybody for participating. I think it's been a great meeting. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion second?
All in favor?
Aye. Great.
Adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for recording for us.
Yes,
We
thank you.
planned to do
Thank you
that
very much.
special.